All right, let's blast off. We got ICE killing in Maine. Obviously, we're talking about that memorandum of misunderstanding ceasefire over situation monitor straight closed. Right-wing Dems panic in Michigan. They're coming after our boy Abdul hard. Get in now. I've seen enough. What is this? Zyn nicotine pouches without knowing that what they were made of, says former agency scientist. FDA authorized it. Toxicologist says agency failed to consider whether the pouch material could shed microplastics. Oh, shit. Oh, then it's fine. It's making my mouth gay. The microplastics have been making my mouth gay this whole time without me knowing. This person says, fuck me, please. No. But also, do we have a blast off meme? There's an MMA fighter called Cody Durden. Who's this imposter? Who's this imposter? My main man, Toby. And now they're trying to be like Toby. Cody Durden. Get him the hell out of here. Get him the hell out of here. And God... dang it, his name is Toby. Not Kobe Dirty. Is that good? Is that... did you guys get it out of your system? I certainly did. All right, let's blast off and let's continue. All right, we got the blast offs here. We got Zoran and Mario Kart style situation. We got Israel comes to me in my dreams. Anyway, blasting off. It made me more anxious for some reason. What are the odds that the Senate rams through the NDAA and then after that we're fucked with that? They say Mitch is dead. I don't know anymore, man. I feel like we're kind of fucked no matter what, you know? Not to get too discouraged here. But the Israel-American military merger thing is probably one of the most black-pilling things I've seen American Congress try to pull off. Because we're at the precipice of a turning point with America's relationship with Israel. This is an 80-year relationship at this point, and it's gotten it's gotten so out of hand. Some account named Potato is spreading misinfo about you as being signal boosted by Bad Empanada. Please stop. Who cares, man? Let them fucking chirp, please. They're just I'm done. I'm done with the schizo left. We got the American Congress straight up merging its military with the Israeli military, and you're over here being like, hey, there's this schizophrenic Australian guy who has made it his life's mission to just fucking slander your reputation. It's like, get in fucking line, man. Get in line. You know what I say to that? I say, what gives? At least every moment that he's doing that, he's not being like weirdly racist for some fucking strange reason. What gives? You know what I say to that? Behind me is the Gordie Howe Bridge. And right here is the Ambassador Bridge. One was built by Trump's biggest donor, Matty Maroon. Trump's biggest donor, Matty Maroon. What gives? We're facing down the American years of lead. Why do we give a shit about Bad Empanada? It's because he wants to be an active participant in the American years of lead, but also as like a psyop and a left wrecker and someone who can hopefully MK Ultra style activate one of his like schizo Iowan Maoists to go and assassinate like left candidates potentially. So yeah, that's part of the reason why it's fucking annoying. Matty Maroon. Okay, I think you're a funny guy, Hassan, or maybe I'm just stoned. I think American politics it can be funny. I mean, think about it this way: we have a plague doctor responsible for like American health all together. Okay, all around. RFK Jr. is is basically the manifestation of illness and disease. And now he's in charge of the HHS, right? And what has he done? Paired up with the Doge cuts that came with Elon Musk's team of crypto fash weirdos, we now have a crisis of explosive diarrhea in the country. Okay? Mr. Pestilence himself has taken it upon himself to give every American diarrhea. How do you not laugh at that? I mean, it's devastating and it can be dangerous. It can be even deadly. But now Americans, by the tens of thousands, are experiencing ass blasting, explosive diarrhea. A San Diego infectious disease doctor says it's probably best to stay away from fresh produce for the next week or so. Because even if you wash it, a fecal parasite illness known as cyclosporiasis has now reached California. That's what's going on. It's making you dookie. It's making you pee-pee out of your butt. Okay. Now, what's crazy about this? I love salads. I eat salads all the time. I luckily have not been hit with the explosive dookie wave. Allah korusun. But here's the problem. We brought this upon ourselves and we destroyed the one mechanism that could identify where this fucking parasite was coming from, because the FDA is crippled. So what do? It's been a multifaceted approach. We are destructive in every way, shape, and form. And therefore, not only do we have a bunch of dumbasses in charge of the health stuff, we've also destroyed our capabilities of combating disease like this. But also on the other side, we've destroyed the capabilities of identifying where this kind of disease is coming from in our food supply. I guess in some respects, it's a little funny. What are we to do? The inmates are running the asylum, folks. Anyway, that's just the situation that we have in front of ourselves. It's a beautiful day. We're going to talk about all of that and more. Let's just dive right into it, folks, because there's not really much else going on in my personal news. Let's dive right into it. We're diving into the Strait of Hormuz. We're taking a big gulp. The Hormuzzi is plugged right now. It's very much closed. Now, of course, if you listen to Donald Trump, he'll say it's open, but also at the same time, he's going to plug it himself. That's where we're at.
The stakes in the war with Iran by announcing a new blockade of Iranian ports and saying the U.S. will impose a fee on cargo ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. and Iran traded air and missile strikes for the third night in a row, and for the first time ever, American forces used an explosive sea drone to destroy an Iranian dock. Weijia Jiang is at the White House this morning. Weijia, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. Good morning, everybody. At President Trump's direction, the U.S. will also resume blocking ship traffic from entering or exiting Iranian ports this afternoon. It follows those escalating attacks between the U.S. and Iran, with more than 50,000 U.S. troops currently deployed across the Middle East. Both sides now are saying they want to control the strait and get paid for it.
As the exchanges of fire continue, so do threats from President Trump, who vows to keep striking Iran.
We're attacking Iran right now as we speak, and they deserve it.
Late last night, the U.S. says it successfully hit military targets across Iran during a 5-hour mission. In response, Iran launched retaliatory missile strikes in Bahrain. Iran is using aggression in the Strait of Hormuz as leverage, but Trump now says the U.S. will control the waterway and impose a 20% fee on cargo shipments.
We're protecting a very rich portion of the world.
You forget the wisdom of Don Su. That which cannot be opened must be closed tighter. Yeah, it's like a Chinese finger trap. Art of the deal, art of the steal. Okay? Sometimes in order to get out of a Chinese finger trap, you got to push further. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what he's doing. He's decided if your opponent has closed the Strait of Hormuz, if your opponent has closed an important pathway for global commerce, what you have to do is close it even harder. And what you have to do is charge even more than your opponent is charging to make your opposition look better in comparison. These are the brilliant tactics of a man, a warlord with a lot of experience. Okay? Yamamoto fit check, please. It's Yoji. He looks tough. He looks tough. The X looks a little strange.
We're spending money.
I like
so
it.
what we've done is we are going to be reimbursed for protection.
Iran's foreign minister responded in an X post that Iran has always been the guardian of the strait and will remain so forever, adding 20% is, of course, too much. We will be fair. Just last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the idea of any nation charging tolls on the strait is illegal.
No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. That's existing international law.
Patrick DeHaan, the head of petroleum analysis for GasBuddy, says a 20% toll could increase the price of oil by $15 a barrel.
That would be catastrophic to global oil prices. It could send them up dramatically if it is pulled off. And it would have a major negative in restraining the flow of oil through the strait. Not only oil, but gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel at a time of year that demand tends to be highest.
In a letter obtained by CBS News.
Isn't he coming after the ICC for upholding international law? Yes. Yes, he is. What is this? If Bob El Mandeb closes, China can't help. What is Mr. Global 2025, chatter? Chatter, what the hell did you just link me, bro? I'm sorry. We have to have a little bit more discipline with the linking, okay? I know that you have the privilege. If you are subscribed to me, if you've subscribed to independent media, Piker Broadcasting Service, People's Broadcasting Service, then you can send me videos. You can send me links. This is wild. This is a wild link to send. I'm going to keep it at $150, even if this is really good analysis. He's an oil and gas expert. Even if it's really, really good analysis, I can't get over the Mr. Global 2025, especially because the PFP and the Thumbo have the same face. No, Mr. Global is actually a valid industry source. Okay, fuck it. We're watching it. God damn it.
Well, the war between the United States and Iran is now a war involving, 10 countries now?
Man, I would rather read, man. Stop. I would rather read. Just give me something to read, man. That's too much. My dad loves this guy. Hell yeah. Did you see Jeremy Scale go beast mode this morning? I did not, but apparently there's a follow-up to my interview with Congressman Ro Khanna from our boy Jeremy Scahill, who identified some of the inherent contradictions in Ro Khanna's messaging, where he on the one hand is trying to be a bold and sometimes lone voice against Israel in Congress, but also on the other hand, probably doesn't want to be like assassinated or something, or, you know, I guess like wants to maintain a posture that is like J Street appropriate. And that's an inherently contradictory position. So Ro Khanna asked him, Jeremy Scahill asked him some questions about, some of the statements that Congressman Ro Khanna had made on my broadcast. Let's take a look.
I want to say, I think objectively, a lot of people who have been deeply concerned about the apartheid state of Israel, the genocide in Gaza, find it refreshing to hear a member of Congress speak in this way. And the fact that you also have used this opportunity to try to highlight specific cases of Palestinians. I want to ask you, though, what you think the consequences for Israel should be, not just of these actions, but also for the mass murder of documented roughly 80,000 people. It's probably much higher than that in Gaza, a significant portion of whom are children. I've heard you talk about sanctioning individuals. I've heard the framing that you and Bernie Sanders offer about offensive weapons or weapons that kill civilians, but I've also heard your defense of Iron Dome. And I want to push you on this because I think a lot of the critique of you from pro-Palestine people and from Palestinians is that the position you're advocating basically amounts to, we need to make sure that the sniper is protected so that he can continue sniping.
Well, if we look, I appreciate the question, and I will answer it specifically. But if you look at all the things I've called for, I've said zero aid to Israel and supporting the Massey Amendment that does that. That's going to be a big vote coming up this week. I've said no military sales to Israel that are used to kill civilians.
I'll be honest. Here's what I have to say about this. Okay. Ro Khanna's position is, of course, inconsistent, right? It doesn't make sense. If you identify the problem, if you are knowledgeable about the history, okay. Ro Khanna also happens to be one of the lone voices in Congress, and I do think he's movable. I'm not saying his assessment was great. I mean, I addressed it as well. I critiqued it myself when I had him on the broadcast. I do think he's movable on this issue, though. So we'll see. We'll see where he goes with it.
I've said no military integration and led the fight to repeal Section 224 and 219.
You're being incredibly naive here, Hassan. No, I think I'm being unbelievably pragmatic and maybe perhaps a little cold and perhaps a little bit calculated, because I think if he's movable on this issue, we can get others to be far, far, far more aggressive in their posture. Because, look, there are two different kinds of politicians in Congress from my perspective. Okay, we got the ideologues, we got the ride or dies, right? Maylot Quiros, Daria Liza, Claire Valdez, Chris Rabb. These are people I don't have to worry about. These are not people that I will have to hold to account, right? At least they might betray us at some point, but I know that these are people whose position already comes from a place of knowledge, a place of understanding the situation. Hamawi is another one, right? These are the people that we're not going to have to go after to be like, hey, what are you doing? Ilhan Omar is another one of these people. Rashida Tlaib is another one of these people. These numbers are growing, right? But then you also have people that are movable, okay? There's three different kinds of people in Congress, sorry, let's say, right? Three different kinds of people. Ro Khanna is in the second camp, where whether or not this is a sincerely held position of his, or whether or not he's just literally learning about the history of the region, the history of this country in real time as he is experiencing it, while simultaneously still trying to make a calculated decision to not be called an anti-Semite endlessly, right? And still try to manage these relationships with J Street, all this stuff. He's a movable person, which is good. Far better than the third category of person that is bought and paid for, or ideologically a Zionist, right? So I'll take Ro Khanna over Chuck Schumer. I'll take Ro Khanna over Josh Gottheimer. I'll take Ro Khanna over people who are already there, people who are just aggressive champions of this cause, Haley Stevens being another one, right? I'll take Ro Khanna over Haley Stevens. Do you see what I mean? That's where my pragmatism comes from. I'll take Ro Khanna over Cory Booker, right? So I'm being super pragmatic. There's a difference between trying to get as many congresspersons to move in our direction and in the direction of the truth, and holding them to account this way is a big part of it, okay? Private correspondence is another part of it, but holding them to account this way is also a major part of it. Arm's distance, but also a little push and a little pull. Do you see what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they're public servants. They serve us, right? Because think about it this way. If you look back at my correspondence with Ro Khanna very publicly at the DNC in 2024, and then you look at the conversation that we had a couple months ago when he came to my house versus the conversation that we had when he came back from Israel, he's moved quite a bit on this issue, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So that is still, that places Ro Khanna in a far better position than the large majority of AIPAC-backed stooges that are saying stuff like Israel comes to me in my dreams. Right? We got to do it all. Full spectrum. To each their own. But if you're wondering what's my analysis on this, what's my assessment on this, that's where I'm coming from. These sorts of conversations are very good, though. They're very productive.
Is Netanyahu's end run, where they would just co-produce the military. I've said we should call it apartheid and recognize the genocide. So these are on a scale of 1 to 10. You know, it's like going from 1 to 7 or 8, and the debate is, okay, 9 or 10. Do I an arms embargo completely, which I have not supported, would say Israel can't even get or produce from anyone defensive, the Iron Dome. And I guess my view is, you know, anyone should be able to protect civilian life, but that's not America.
We need to let more people know the government weapons sales ban while still allowing Israel to purchase weapons themselves, a J Street position, and J Street is paying politicians to push that agenda, much like how AIPAC does. This would also be productive. Full slack, you're 100% right. Can't believe I'm saying that. Can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth right now, but full slack, you are right about that, of course. And that is very frustrating for me because J Street is seen as like the woke progressive version of like the appropriate way to continue. What is this? Not that it matters, but I think Roe's an opportunist that will move left if it's popular enough, but he's always moving from the center. He's safe but not evil. Roe is a beautiful man. God, I love Enfant Door so much, bro. You are legendary. You are a legendary chatter. Okay? I cannot believe how horny Enfant Door is this morning. That is crazy. That is crazy. Oh my God. Oh my God. Enfant Door. Should have banned him for being pro-segregation? No. Okay. No, and I'm glad I didn't, because now we have this wonderful take coming from Enfant Door, who is, I believe, a 30-plus-year-old black woman who is pro-segregation, yes, who's anti-miscegenation, pro-segregation, unless it's for Ro Khanna, for which Enfant makes an exception. Not too much. Respect. It's cool. We've made Enfant Door reconsider her position on. We've made Enfant Door reconsider her position on the dangers of miscegenation. Anyway. And they say Chad is a monolith. Queer black man, closing up. Oh shit, my mistake. A queer black man. See, I don't know all the details of every single chatter. I was wrong. Anyway, let's keep going.
Supporting it. I do think, though, that there is something that the next administration could do within the first 100 days. Instead of just saying, okay, we're going to talk abstractly about this long peace process, demand the arrest of Yanon Levy and extremist settlers within 100 days. Demand the destruction of every outpost within 100 days. Demand the destruction of illegal settlements within 100 days. Demand a justice for Palestinians and Palestinian people so that they stop getting terrorized within 100 days. That doesn't have to be some dialogue. That needs to be a directive from the American administration saying Israel must do this. And we need to be taking steps as we get towards a broader peace in that direction. I think that's one of the things that came out of this trip, the immediacy of the suffering of Palestinians.
I still don't think this is answering the question. I mean, tell me where I'm wrong here. What you're advocating for, we are talking about not just Netanyahu. Sanders always says Netanyahu and his extremist right-wing government. But if you look at public opinion polling, there is widespread support for open genocidal policies. In fact, Netanyahu is often criticized by his political opponents for not having finished the job in Gaza or in Lebanon or elsewhere. And I want to know why it is that you are stopping on this, because so much of what you're saying, it's one of the clearest recognitions of the issue that you could hear from an American.
This low key also almost feels like it feels like when people say, "Oh, we can't have Medicare for all, let's just do something else." I don't know what it is about politicians, but it's just like politislop. Okay, it's the reverse of sloppyism. We got to find a term for it. You know how like some people will say, "Oh, it's sloppyism." We need a new term for it where like politicians will look at an issue and then we'll be like, "Well, don't let perfect get in the way of good," right? Like there is a version where politicians will do it no matter what. Where they'll be like, I saw the apartheid. I experienced the racism. I understand how fucking evil this shit is. But also politics is the art of possible. It's like, okay, well, you still move the needle. You still have your moral conviction, move the needle, and be a political leader. Now that you have established credibility in this space as someone who like experienced it, right? And no one's going to yell at you for getting the needle across halfway, right? Do you see what I mean? Like it doesn't matter if you're pushing for an embargo, but then you're fine with half measures along the way to like advance those. It's good to advance those demands even if you're not going to get them. Right? That's my attitude on it. And I don't understand why these guys won't do it. They won't push for it.
Politician. And yet, you still are saying, but the sniper needs to have protection.
It's not the sniper. It's saying that we're not, just so there's no ambiguity on my position, which is also the position of Sanders or AOC or others, as I understand it. It is.
I think also Ro Khanna doesn't realize that there's like a whole world out there, like far beyond AOC and Sanders. Like people like myself are kind to AOC and Bernie Sanders, and a lot of people will yell at me for it, but it's somewhat of a tactical decision as well, because I think like it's important for people like AOC to like move the conversation forward. And not everyone grades politicians on a curve in the way that I do, but like I have my own personal convictions and my own personal positions that go far beyond AOC and Bernie Sanders on this issue. Right? So, Jeremy's not gonna be like, oh, AOC said so, then I guess that's fine. Jeremy is another one of these people who understands the necessity, understands the history of it.
That we have zero military aid to Israel, that we have no military sales that are used to kill, military weapons that are used to be killing civilians. So that's the drop.
I would argue Iron Dome is used to kill. I would argue Iron Dome is used to kill civilians because it allows the Israelis to have this American backing to operate with impunity by openly saying that I support this military technology for Israel. What you're saying is that when Israel attacks other countries who have a right to fight back, that my position is that sniper, I wish he wasn't doing the sniping, but that sniper has a right to have the United States defending their sniping.
But I don't think that that's the case if we're stopping all military aid and we're stopping giving them the weapons to kill others, and we're stopping protecting them at the UN, and we're demanding the actions in terms of justice. I don't think that their policies, whether it's Netanyahu
Why
or
give them
another Israeli
anything?
government.
Would you say this about apartheid South Africa? I've heard you talk
Well,
about it.
because I think because I
give me
do
another
think
example where you say it's okay to continue any level of support for an openly genocidal society that has mass murdered 80,000 people, more than 300 media workers, has invaded Lebanon, has bombed Iran, and you're saying, oh, but we need to protect civilians. This isn't about protecting civilians.
See, look, it's a little push, a little pull, okay? Jeremy pushes, I pushed a little bit, and then I pulled a little bit. Jeremy's pushing further. That's good. This is a healthy and productive part of discourse, okay?
Greatest threat to their civilians is their policy. And so I don't.
Sure you did? What do you mean? All the fucking clips that circulated, and part of the reason why Jeremy's pushing further on this issue is because, at least, you know, what he told me is like he's expanding on the conversation that took place where Ro Khanna revealed his positions a little bit further, where he said like, oh, you know, the I'm in favor of an Iron Dome for the Palestinians potentially. I'm not in favor of like taking away the Iron Dome from the Israeli civilians.
I understand why you have even one qualified shred of support for a sniper mass murderer masquerading as the.
Yeah, for AOC, we don't know what. Like, I don't think AOC's ever been pushed on her full spectrum position on this stuff. Like the last time DSA last time DSA basically petitioned her to demand a change in her position or a clarification on her position, she came out and she said, no aid, defensive, offensive, no distinction, it doesn't matter. And that made that the new progressive standard bearer. However, that's still a problem because that's the J Street position where, like, look, for people that don't understand, the entanglements that we already have with the Israeli military are far more comprehensive than what you assume, than what you would think, than what you know about. And I even addressed that with Ro Khanna, if you recall, because like we're currently talking about the NDAA and how the American military and the Israeli military are slated to merge with one another, right? That's a huge problem for a million different reasons. But what a lot of people don't know is that we already have this merger in certain instances with the Israeli military. Like one of the most common examples that I like to use is jet fuel. The American Pentagon, the American government already gives Israel jet fuel, okay? And they don't give it above the board. Like they don't, that's not even factored into the Israeli aid. That's not factored into the money that we send to Israel so they can purchase stuff. We just straight up give them jet fuel, okay? And it's not above board. What, like, it's not even discussed. It's just a thing that the Pentagon does, okay? That is some of the more opaque versions of this already existing partnership, right? We just straight up give them the jet fuel, for the record. Before you, like, I'm telling you, like, we just give them the jet fuel for their F-35s, for their different jets that they fly, for the Israeli Air Force. We give them that, okay? So when people say, oh, I want to stop aid to Israel, like, there are many different versions of this, and I think some people take advantage of the vagueness of the aid. Like, what do you mean when you say you want to stop the aid? Are you saying you want to stop the memorandum of understanding, the MOU that exists, the Obama era MOU, where we give them $3.8 billion every year in cash so they can then turn around and purchase Tamir interceptors that we produce in this joint cooperative production agreement that we have with the Israeli state for their Iron Dome, as is colloquially known, right? Is that what you want to stop? Or do you mean you want to stop giving money to Israel altogether so they can continue purchasing our weapons, so that they can continue purchasing our weapons, but now they do it with their money? Or do you mean an arms embargo, right? Are you talking about an arms embargo where we actually hold the Israeli government accountable for the crimes that it's committed, that we know it's committed, that we've actually identified, we've documented and hid during the Biden administration especially, right? Anthony Blinken had reports of the Israeli government deliberately stopping aid from entering into the Gaza Strip. This is the clearest violation of international humanitarian law. There is no clearer violation of the of international human rights than a country stopping aid from entering an area that it currently occupies. Okay? That's starving. That's mass starvation of a civilian population. It is straight up genocidal. It is a clear-cut war crime. No ands, ifs, or buts. It is a definitional war crime that actually made a lot of people who were pro-Israel, a lot of people who were lifetime Zionists, even openly admit that Israel was conducting a war crime and possibly a genocide and creating famine-like conditions in the Gaza Strip. There were people who were lifelong Zionists that work at like the Human Rights Watch, for example, that said, nope, that's it, I'm out. Because there's no excuse for it, okay? So if we knew that and we identified that, okay, when our State Department identified that and Anthony Blinken cast aside that report and hid it, that means from that, frame one, from that moment onward, we were aiding and abetting in war crimes that we knew Israel was engaging in, right? And we know that already here at the broadcast, but I'm saying like the American State Department also knows, and it also holds them legally liable for the participation in this genocide as well, which, makes this an even trickier situation for them, because then if they recognize it, if they admit it, then they're also basically admitting their moral culpability and their actual legal liability in the participation of this genocide, which, from my perspective, sucks to suck, tough titties. You shouldn't have fucking done a genocide, you dipshit. That's my attitude on it, at least. But the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because there's varying degrees of like Israel critical sentiment that's floating around in Congress right now. So you have the AOC, you have the AOC line, which is no distinction between defensive and offensive weapons, no money, right? No aid to Israel so they can purchase weapons. But does that mean Israel can now purchase weapons from us still? Weapons that they use to kill children, weapons that they use to continue bombing Lebanon and killing children in Lebanon, while they're purchasing those weapons with our money, with their money. Is that the distinction? Or is it further beyond? Is it a full-blown arms embargo? Is it full-blown sanctions? If you're interested in sanctioning the country of Israel or some of the financial institutions within the Israeli state, how comprehensive are you? How far are you willing to go? Almost every single candidate that I have endorsed and campaigned with, actually, I think every single candidate that I've endorsed and campaigned with has been in favor of a clear-cut definitional embargo, okay? They want an embargo. They want to stop all arms transfers to Israel and hold them to account for the genocide. Every single one of them has pushed this position. Ro Khanna clearly is uncomfortable getting there right now. And I don't know if AOC is comfortable getting there, but the reality of the matter is Jeremy Ben-Ami, this is Adam Johnson reporting all the way back from April 16th. Jeremy Ben-Ami is the president of J Street. J Street's cut off military aid PR gambit changes nothing, says Adam Johnson. He wrote about this on therealnews.com. Love Adam Johnson, as you guys know. But this basically shows the PR move here, right? The PR move that J Street is playing here, where they, and I covered this at the time, I was very critical of it, where J Street's position now is, yeah, stop giving money to Israel to purchase weapons from America. They should purchase it with their own money. But that's not going to stop the issue, is it? That's not going to stop. Adam Johnson has some issues, none that I know of. And that's very strange that you're saying that, because he's been, I think, one of the most reliable media critics since I've been around. Probably one of the best posters. He just recently wrote a book as well about how to sell a genocide. But J Street backs phasing out all U.S. aid to Israel by 2028. However you feel about J Street, anyone who's still saying they're indistinguishable for AIPAC is either unintelligent or a bad faith actor, wrote pollster Adam Carlson. Democrats are coalescing around ending military aid to Israel, boasted Executive Vice President of Center for International Policy, Matt Duss. At first glance, this move may seem like a major shift left for the liberal think tank and the broader Democratic Party consensus around Israel. But upon closer inspection, it's clear that this talking point is mostly a sieve, a PR tactic that provides a pseudo break from Israel, but does little to alter the material reality of apartheid and genocide, all while buying time for a Democratic leadership increasingly at odds with their base, 71% of whom now support cutting off military aid to Israel. This narrative that J Street and leading Democrats more broadly are all getting behind cutting military aid, while strictly accurate under certain interpretations of the word aid, is deeply misleading. The effort is explicitly aligned with a broader right-wing program to move from direct funding of the military to co-development and co-production of weapons, and is designed to provide Zionist Democrats a superficially appealing talking point that looks Israel critical while doing nothing to materially change the status quo. This goes hand in hand with the merger plan that we were talking about. So if the Israeli military and the American military merges and they have more comprehensive defense production strategies, then all of a sudden it makes it far more difficult to cut off weapons transfers to the state of Israel, which is why I brought up this problem to Ro Khanna as well. Okay? So the J Street attitude, the J Street strategy works in tandem with the Benjamin Netanyahu strategy here. Benjamin Netanyahu himself has said, "Oh, we're no longer gonna need aid from the United States of America." I mean, he's been saying that since the 80s, or since the 90s, sorry, but it doesn't really matter. I don't know if it's actually going to happen. But my point is, J Street also even mentioned Benjamin Netanyahu openly stating their desire, whether it's real or sincere or not, doesn't matter. They even mentioned Benjamin Netanyahu wants to cut off aid. You understand? So this inconsistency, of course, must be addressed. And that's precisely what Jeremy's doing here. Let's take a look. I'm going to start here.
Sniping, but that sniper has a right to have the United States defending their sniping.
But I don't think that that's the case. If we're stopping all military aid and we're stopping giving them the weapons to kill others, and we're stopping protecting them at the UN, and we're demanding the actions in terms of justice, I don't think that their policies, whether it's Netanyahu or another Israeli government.
Would you say this about apartheid South Africa? I've heard you talk
well,
about it.
Because I think give
me another example where you say it's okay to continue any level of support for an openly genocidal society that has mass murdered 80,000 people, more than 300 media workers, has invaded Lebanon, has bombed Iran, and you're saying, oh, but we need to protect civilians. This isn't about protecting civilians. The greatest threat to their civilians is their...
What are these reservations for? Oh, I don't get it. He's not bought. It's an inconsistency. Of course people are going to fucking address this inconsistency. This is not one of those instances where we're like doing the same thing again. We're just like hitting the closest person to us ideologically. This is good because I think Ro is movable on this. I hit him on this in 2024. Okay? Like this conversation didn't start last year. Okay? Ro Khanna has had a significant transformation on this issue. And you can literally map it out from our conversations in person from 2024 at the DNC all the way to like this past weekend where I talked to him when he came back from the West Bank. Okay? That's why I think he's movable. Whether it's because of his personal ambitions, of his personal aspirations to run for president or not, it doesn't matter because he is a public servant at the end of the day. So for me, What matters is his output. And what matters is the growth he's shown. What matters is the positions that have changed in real time. Okay? And that's a good thing, and I'm going to give him credit for that, regardless of what the reasoning for it behind his change is. That means he's at least like a room reader, right? As opposed to many of these other people who are not, or refuse to read the room, refuse to go to the room. Okay? This doesn't mean, offer full-blown unconditional support to Ro Khanna, but it also means you should recognize the value that we can derive out of a public servant like Ro Khanna, who is movable on this issue, because he's not like Daria Lisa or Claire Valdez or Chris Rabb or all these other people who are already there. They're knowledgeable on this issue. They have their ideological convictions. They have their moral convictions. They're already there, right? They're already there. That's literally the bad empanada position, but you shit on him. Brother, the bad empanada position is just mass harassment of people in my community, my fans, and people that are closest to him ideologically, at least self-described, whatever his self-described ideology is. He's just an unproductive LARPer and a little bit mentally unwell. Not even a little bit, very mentally unwell. I don't care about whatever fucking bad empanada is doing. Okay, give it up. Gucci bag, give it up. It's over. Okay?
Policy. And so I don't understand why you have even one qualified shred of support for a sniper mass murderer masquerading as the only democracy in the Middle East.
Well, but I'm not saying that the United States should be supporting the funding for Iron Dome, just so we're clear. I'm saying that we shouldn't be restricting Israel from being able to get the Iron Dome or be able to develop the Iron Dome technology. Well,
I stop there. Everything else you're saying makes so much sense. Why do you stop there? It feels to me like you're trying to have it both ways on this issue. So you can say, well, I actually support, defending the Israeli civilians. You're not defending Israeli civilians with that policy. You're defending the sniper's ability to keep killing because it won't face the ultimate accountability, which is a total embargo on all support for an apartheid state.
Yeah, I don't think you have to put at risk. You would agree, there are innocent civilians in Israel, right? Including 20% being Arab Israelis. I mean, I just don't think that you have to put their lives at risk to achieve the ends of stopping the apartheid, stopping the occupation.
Israel puts their lives at risk by waging genocidal wars with the support of a significant portion of its population, and by enabling them by saying, well, the sniper still needs to have his cover, or well, I stop at this thing. What you're saying is that the accountability then doesn't lie on American policy toward Israel. It's sort of something abstract. Well, Israeli civilians could die. Israeli civilians are dying in these attacks because of the apartheid. Palestinians have a right to kill Israeli soldiers, Congressman? On October 7th, when they attacked the military bases in the Gaza envelope, did the Qassam brigades and Surah al-Quds have a right to kill Israeli soldiers? Yes or no? On October 7th, did Palestinians have a right to attack Israeli military bases in the Gaza envelope? Yes or no?
I mean, I think October 7th attack was a terrorist attack, so I don't justify.
Was it a terrorist attack when the first targets that were hit on the morning of October 7th were...
I mean, he should have done something. Look, Jeremy is my king. He's a legend. And of course, the answer is yes, the Palestinian resistance does have a right to militarily resist against the Israeli military. It's an occupation force. Of course, it's legal, right? I think the better way to ask this question is, does Hamas have a right to kill Israeli soldiers inside of Gaza? Okay. For the record, the answer is yes, like unambiguous. It's not even a question. Does Hezbollah have a right to militarily resist against the Israeli occupation inside of Lebanon? Answer is unambiguously yes. Okay? When you move into offensive postures inside of the Green Line, it's going to be a tougher one for an American congressman to say, to openly say yes to. But That's what's so crazy about this, the situation is that like they literally do have an internationally recognized right to do that. They have a moral and legal right to do that. But of course, unfortunately, we live in the United States of America, and of course, no one's going to say fucking yes to that. Or the people that do say yes to that, myself included, will get yelled at endlessly, and they'll say I'm anti-Semitic. But that is the tougher one to answer, in my opinion.
Multiple military bases. Did Palestinian forces have a right to attack those military bases?
I am not for violence again in any way. I mean, I am for making sure that we end.
Yeah, this is why I was saying like the one that's a gimme. The one that's a gimme is the way I framed it. This one's even tougher because like no congressperson with presidential aspirations whatsoever is ever going to say at least parts of the October 7 military operation were technically legal under international law. They're not going to say that. It's just not going to happen.
Do they have a right to do it, Congressman? Do they have a right to attack Israeli soldiers?
No, I'm not going to say that Hamas had a right to attack Israeli soldiers or kill Israelis. Like I don't think that advances peace or advances Palestinian statehood.
Does Israel have a right to drop a single bomb on Gaza in response to October 7th?
I believe Israel had the right to get people.
Nope, wrong. Again, wrong. Under international, I mean, dude, I said this on October 8th, 2023, and people never let me live it down. But no, wrong. Israel did not have a right to militarily occupy or bomb or do any violent military action in an area that it is the belligerent occupier of. Gaza is technically occupied by Israel. So no, Israel did not have a legal right to drop a single bomb on Gaza, whether it was post-October 7 or pre-October 7 on numerous sieges that Israel committed. They do not. They do not have that right at all. It's crazy. Ro Khanna's position as expressed here is that Palestinians do not have a right to self-defense because they don't have a state. He states this in the Obama-esque framework of selective pacifism, which is profoundly insulting to say the least. But more concerningly, he's looking for the off-ramp that allows the status quo to continue while making space for his own personal disavowal. You either think it's a genocide and apartheid that the U.S. is directly complicit in and support whatever it takes to that end, or you don't. I don't know. Maybe I just like am occupied. Maybe I'm in a fucking weird space by myself where I am like my moral convictions and my position and what I'm trying to advance is the understanding of international law for every single American, recognize our moral culpability. But then also on the other hand, when it comes to elections or when it comes to politicians specifically, I try to move them as close to my position, the position of truth, as fast as possible. Okay, that's what is so frustrating. That's the reason why there's a lot of friction between myself and people who are who present themselves as further to the left of me. It's ironic because like we don't even disagree on basic facts about this issue. Like the Palestinian resistance have a right to militarily resist against the Israeli occupation. It's fucking clear. I've said that always. Okay. This is the reason why the ADL and all these fucking advocacy groups hate me. Not because they perceive me as being anti-Semitic or whatever the fuck. No, it's because of this. Because there are no major influences in American politics that will openly say the truth. That the Palestinian resistance, the Lebanese resistance has a legal right to resist against Israeli occupation. Militarily resist, right?
People who killed the civilians, but not in the way they went about it, which I've said is genocide.
but the Palestinians don't have a right to attack the very military bases that are running the killing operations on October 6th, 2023, or October 5th, 2023. It's a double standard. You're saying there are ways that Israel should be able to kill Palestinians, but there is never a condition under which Palestinians can attack armed, uniformed soldiers of a force that is still considered an occupying force under international law. I don't make it make sense to me how those
I
two
come
things
from
are
a
not total
tradition of
hypocrisy.
King and Gandhi. My grandfather was in jail
I'm aware of your
for.
family history. Do you think King would say, "Well, there's certain they can attack the Viet Cong, but I don't want them to kill"?
I
North
don't
Vietnamese
think
civilians?
anyone. I don't know what Gandhi would say. I don't think my grandfather would say that the Palestinians should have armed resistance to Israeli occupation. I think they would argue for a much more nonviolent approach. But America, I think, in ending aid, in ending military sales, in not being a defender of Israel in the UN, just vetoing resolutions against Israel, would make tremendous progress. I mean, maybe we're on a scale of 1 to 10, and you think you're.
Again, look, the most charitable interpretation of this is he doesn't know. The most charitable interpretation is he does not know that the Palestinians have done that for fucking 75 plus years, 80 years, and that has led to nothing, right? No, this isn't a defense. This isn't a defense. There's a difference between someone not knowing, learning about it, and then changing their perspective versus someone who does know and is deliberately trying to reframe the conversation in a way where they're trying to get you to understand their position. I think that there is a sense of opportunism here. Okay, there's a sense of opportunism here for sure, but also there is a clear-cut lack of knowledge. You're literally sheepdogging here, piece of shit. Oh my fucking God. I'm not even defending Ro Khanna's position. I'm literally saying Jeremy Scale is cooking. Guys, Jesus fucking Christ. All I'm saying is he's movable. If he doesn't move, then he's oppositional. Fuck me. It's not defense, it's analysis. Why are you guys so fucking brain broken? I hate this. I genuinely fucking hate doing political commentary at this point because even those on the left will look at anything that I'm saying and go, if you don't say Ro Khanna is a liberal Zionist baby murderer right now, and if you even pull his transformation on this issue, whether it's personally just because of his aspirational goals of running for president or not, doesn't even matter, right? When you say he's moved on this issue, he's literally gone to the West Bank, okay? And he's movable because of his own personal experiences that he's had so far, especially if he learns more information about this stuff. And these sorts of conversations are very good and very productive for that reason. Okay? You immediately go, dude, you're sheepdogging for the liberal Democrats, for the Zionists. I'm not. I have no stake in this, okay? I have no dog in this fight. You know what my positions are. It's so goddamn annoying. Anytime we talk about like American politics and American Congress and congressional representatives, and I analyze it from the framework of like where the rest of Congress is versus where Ro Khanna is, and then I tell you where he used to be as opposed to where he is now, immediately people go, shut the fuck up, you're sheepdogging. It's so fucking annoying. Holy shit. Ultras have become a plague on online discourse. I honestly don't know why I didn't expect them, but it feels like we're closer to making some change in this country the more insane they get. Please, let us interpret things as they're taking place, okay?
At a 10, and I'm saying let's go to a 6, 7, 8. I don't know where that would be. And right now, America's at a 1.
No, we're at a 10 because of a genocide that was enabled, supported, armed, and funded by the United States. And I am baffled as to how you can say that Israel had a right to drop a single bomb on Gaza in response to October 7th, but Palestinians, according to you, have no right whatsoever to ever kill an Israeli occupation.
Palestinians have right to justice, which is in the
Do they
case
have a
of the
right to
school
armed
shooting.
resistance against Israeli occupation soldiers in uniform? Do they ever have a right to kill an Israeli soldier?
I think if it's a
Say it. Inside of Gaza. Say it. Do Palestinians have a legal right? Well, it's not even a question at that point because it's just the truth. It's just a matter of law. So it's not even like an interpretation of the law. It's just do you know the law at all? Or do you have an understanding of the accurate application of the law? Because like there's obviously the moral responsibility and the moral right that the Palestinians have to take up arms against an illegal occupation. But then there's also the legal right that they have to do so. That's why I always say, like, look, the Palestinian resistance, some of the forms that it has taken as an act of desperation through this evolution, this 80-year evolution, has led to things that, you know, everyone understands, like targeting civilians. That's obviously a response to the 80-year subjugation of Palestinians. The violence is set by Israel, the occupier. And of course, the violence and the political and the military resistance matches the violence of the oppressor, right? Some of that is illegal. Some of that is a war crime, okay? It's just true. It's objectively true. Having said that, definitionally, the Palestinian resistance has a right to exist. The Palestinian resistance has a right to militarily resist against the Israeli occupation. They have a moral and legal right to do so. Same with Hezbollah, same with the Lebanese forces, whichever forces are mustered up. As a matter of fact, they have more they have more liberties that they can take in terms of how that resistance forms. For example, there's a concept called spontaneous militia. Under normal circumstances in international law, if you are if you're facing a military occupation, you have to be you have to have like clear-cut military garb, for example, right? But because Hamas is a government formation that exists under permanent occupation of the Israeli state, they actually can fight back in civilian clothing. They legally can fight back in civilian clothing because it is literally a part of a spontaneous militia that forms in real time. Okay? Now, we're getting into obviously like legal interpretation at this point of like whether it's valid, whether it's not valid. Is Hamas a standing military? Is it not a standing military? But ultimately, under international law, there is an allowance for a population to form a spontaneous militia and therefore not even wear military fatigues as they're resisting against a standing military. Okay? Hassan, you're sweating? No, I'm not. It's actually very cool in this room. What's up, Hassan? How are you handling this? Check Twitter. Shit's going down. Check Twitter. Turn on the TV. Any channel. Turn on the internet. Any website. Doesn't matter. Chatter, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm trying to tell you. Use your words. Use your words. I can't, asshole. Wait, what? I'm the asshole? Bro, use your fucking words. What's happening on Twitter? Explain to us what is going on that you think we have to look at right now.
self-defense if they feel like there's an illegal attack on them by a violent settler or by an Israeli soldier, and that's illegal. In a school or on a civilian, and then of course they should have justice.
But the entire thing is illegal, Representative Khanna. The entire occupation of Gaza, the managing their...
The entire occupation of the West Bank, the entire occupation of Gaza is wholly illegal. And yes, whether people want to admit it or whether people want to say it, especially if they have aspirations for higher office, it doesn't matter. If we're having a real conversation about the legal and moral rights and responsibilities that the Palestinians have versus the legal and moral rights and responsibilities the Israeli government has. There's one side that is engaging in a whole lot of illegality, and there's the other side that is responding to it legally and also at certain instances illegally. In the rare instances, illegally. But if we're looking at the broader responsibilities of the fully fleshed out state that is supposed to be beholden to international standards, rules, regulation, restrictions, Israel has never, in its entire existence, Israel has never abided by international rules, international humanitarian laws. They've never restricted their actions. It has always been illegal. And the United States and the Western world has always defended Israel down to the wire every single step of the way. That's why Israel gets away with it. That's precisely the reason why we can't just say, oh, look, Americans now don't fuck with Israel. We gotta take, some initiative. We have to have some initiative here. And we have to actually make material changes. And an American congressperson has the capacity to move the conversation in a much more productive manner.
The mowing the lawn, the constant killing of them. The perspective of many Palestinians is that they're being collectively punished and they're fighting for their very existence, and that the bases that surround Gaza were the primary murderers on a military level of the population of Gaza. So what I'm understanding, whether it's Hamas and Islamic Jihad or it's independent Palestinians, how is it that you can stand here and in any way justify the Israelis dropping bombs on Gaza, but never find a way in which it's justifiable for Palestinians to kill an armed soldier of a force that is under international law and occupation force? I don't understand it.
Well,
I ask you to reconsider this position.
Well, I will look at it, but I don't think that the solution in that area is to encourage
but you're afraid of being
violent...
called pro-Hamas. That's what this boils down to. Because I bet if we were talking off the record privately, and I said this to you, you would acknowledge that people around the world have a right to resistance by all means necessary.
Damn, we even cooked them with the off the record privately. Oh, shit. That's what it is. We need a little bit more bravery from our elected representatives. Sometimes, unfortunately, in an unjust system, it requires bravery to say the truth. Okay? It requires moral conviction and also courage to say the truth, especially when saying the truth gets fucking punished. It's not a secret. Okay? It's not a secret. I've been saying the truth non-fucking stop, and I've been getting ass blasted for it. That's why when you say the truth, AIPAC will put your fucking face on mailers and will say you're a goddamn terrorist and you're aligned with goddamn terrorists. Israel's committing a genocide, but an arms embargo against the genocidal state goes too far. Is a deeply unserious position. Kana also suggests Leahy applies to military sales, which it doesn't. It only applies to military subsidies, so this is a non sequitur, more goofy hedging. They're committing genocide, but we must provide them with military defense, a patently insane position. He repeats genocide and apartheid like 20 times in this interview, but can't seem to follow this logic to its conclusion. Adam says, liberal Zionism is a drug many have a hard time quitting because doing so would require actual courage and moral clarity. It's true. I guess it requires moral courage and clarity, but it also requires a tremendous amount of information that you have to download, okay? It's actually pretty easily accessible. Just read Ilan Pappé, 10 Myths, and you'll get like the cliff notes of it, right? It's foundational. You'll get a very easy to understand, fast track cliff notes version of this from an Israeli Jewish historian, right? And I do think that for a lot of people, they see right from wrong, right? I think that a lot of civilians, we're not talking about Roe now. We're just talking about the average American. I think or even like content creators. I've experienced this in my own personal life with some of my colleagues on this website, right? Not just this website, but also on YouTube and many other places. Like, here's what the problem is, right? it's not a secret that there is a concerted effort to silence any kind of opposition to Israel. And a lot of these institutions, a lot of these organizations that have embedded themselves in the liberal side of the political spectrum that aren't just like outwardly right wing, these institutions that get away with claiming to be civil rights organizations like the ADL and whatnot, they're pretty aggressive with their posture. If you come out and you say anything about Israel, they'll immediately call you a Jew hater, right? And that's a pretty fucking significant smear. Now, the impact of that smear has softened quite a bit over the last 3 years as Israel has continued its genocide, and these organizations have continuously called all of its prominent critics Jew haters and smeared them. Okay? But the problem is, even if a lot of people recognize right from wrong, a lot of normal people recognize right from wrong, and they go, ugh, I don't really like what Israel is doing. But they don't normally come out and say something about it because they're fearful that they don't have the knowledge, right? They understand something is wrong, but they don't want to be inundated with Hasbara. They see people come in and be like, you're a fucking terrorist, you're a Jew hater, here is why. They see the way that people are treated when they do stick their neck out. And that's why it's important for us to demonstrate our moral conviction, our moral courage, and say the truth. Okay? Because someone has to do it, right? Someone has to do it. If someone doesn't do it, if no one does it, then even if people understand that this is the reality, they're still afraid of saying it, and therefore there's an environment of silence around it, there's an environment of suppression around it, and the crimes continue. Okay? But remember, not all of this is born out of malice. Okay? Not all of this is born out of malice. There are a lot of people out there who recognize right from wrong, who might even have experiences with the Israeli government, who are still worried about not being able to hold their own in these conversations because they just don't have access to all the information, and they don't have they haven't taken the time out to like learn about it. That's why I always stress, like, there's a difference between Daria Lisa. There's a difference between Daria Lisa and Chris Rabb and Claire Valdez and even someone like Zoran, who, you know, toes the line of liberal Zionism from time to time, but he does so in a way where he's basically dog whistling. He knows what's up. He knows the truth, right? And I know he knows the truth. That motherfucker started his Students for Justice for Palestine chapter in Bowdoin, okay, in Bowdoin College. So there's a difference in guys like that and guys like Roe who are learning about this in their older age as you know, the passage of time continues. Okay? How do you reconcile grading on a curve with moving their positions? As more and more people move, like when AOC came out and said no distinction between offensive and defensive weapons, now that's the bottom. Now that's the bare minimum. So now we got to push everyone to that bare minimum standard for the progressive side. Okay? Rose, a little baby who's simply learning, guys. Okay, dude. This is not a defense of ignorance, okay? This is just a reflection of reality. I'm just trying to explain to you. Rose, a fucking lawyer, not a mine worker? Yeah, and you'd be shocked at how little people know because they've gotten only one side of the story their whole fucking lives. How many people do you know that have gone to law school, that have gone to like institutes of higher learning, and they've only learned about the issue of Israel from one framework, from one perspective, a Zionist-approved framework? Okay? Most people that are knowledgeable know even less than someone who's not knowledgeable and charitable and curious about the truth. You got to remember that.
I've
always been for peaceful resistance. You know,
but how is peaceful resistance saying the Israelis?
You know, I mean,
just
bomb? Like it's under segregation. I wouldn't have said that go kill people who are engaged in segregation against you. I mean, I'm much more Dr. King than Malcolm X. I mean,
are you much more slave rebellions were justified against people that were raping, hanging, murdering Africans who had been kidnapped? I mean, I'm sorry. I spend most of my day and night talking with Palestinians, working with Palestinians.
I think one of the better ways to ask this question is also the Ukrainian resistance. Like to say, does the Ukrainian resistance have a right to resist against the Russian military occupation? You will never find even a Republican congressperson, regardless of how fucking pro-Russia they might come across as, say no to that, right? So if you understand that distinction when it's Ukrainians, why can't you with Palestinians? That's it. Obviously, the Nat Turner Rebellion is a great counter as well. Any kind of militant resistance against like Jim Crow South and the apartheid conditions that existed in the Jim Crow South is another great example of this as well. Warsaw Ghetto Uprising is another great example, which I brought up to Ro Khanna in our conversation, right? I talked about the Jewish partisans and the sabotage that the resistance front committed, sometimes against civilian infrastructure.
Most of the Palestinians I met, and maybe a few days, are not talking about the kind of armed resistance that you are. They just want to live their lives in dignity and peace and not have the Israeli.
Yeah, I mean, you're an American congressperson. I don't think anyone's going to be like openly going to reveal to you that they're a part of like the resistance front in like Tulkarm or something. You know what I mean? Like. Yes, there's levels to this, okay? There's levels to it. And yes, I think it's great. It's brave of Ro to go there. It's brave of him to go to West Bank and take a Palestinian-led trip, but that's just like a starting point.
Settlers oppress them.
But you're a member of the United States Congress who is justifying, albeit you've been very critical of Israel's war.
Yeah, here's my son and my AK-47. Don't tell anybody. They're not gonna. Yeah. Even speaking about resistance in the occupied territories is basically a one-way ticket to Sde Taimam. Palestinians know that more than anyone. Yeah.
Against Gaza, but you seem to be drawing a line that says that there are some cases in which Israel is justified to attack Palestinians, but only those responsible for October 7th. But you can't find a shred of justification for any Palestinian to attack the very armed forces.
I think in general, most Americans just do not believe in militant resistance. You're so wrong. You're so wrong. Ukraine is a great example of why you're wrong, because it's literally happening right now. And more so than Ukraine, there are historic examples. The IRA. The IRA is the number one historic counter to that. Okay? The IRA is a non-state militant resistance. The IRA is non-state militant resistance. The American congresspersons were illegally sending weapons to the IRA. That wasn't that long ago. I think the real answer is, in general, most Americans just don't believe in non-state militant resistance when it's black or brown people doing it, especially against what they perceive as a white state actor. Okay? Man, you always say this, but it's not true. Most Americans did not support the IRA. Irish Catholics supported the IRA broadly and sent a ton of money. Yes, but I think there was a reason for why this was overlooked by most Americans, is what I'm saying. And that's because they did not have, they saw it as like somewhat justifiable. There's no other comparison. There's never been another comparison of this. I think in general, most Americans just do not believe in militant resistance. It's a dissonant position, but it's sincerely held one by most people. I would say at least 2/3 of people who hate Israel, support Palestine, do not support arms resistance. It's not just something that Americans believe, even though that makes no sense. Our analysis fails when we believe every dissonant position is a cynical one. Oh, I don't believe every dissonant position is a cynical one. Yes, it's liberalism. Liberalism is the hegemonic monoculture that Americans, by and large, believe, and liberalism is a idealistic notion of the world where you think that the pacifist approach is the only one that is successful. That's precisely the reason why even MLK's history has been revised and whitewashed And when most people talk about Malcolm X, they basically treat him like a fucking terrorist, right? MLK and Malcolm X exist together. You understand? They exist together. They were different facets of the civil rights struggle. One cannot exist without the other. There's no success with just one over the other. It's that simple. The point I'm trying to make is our culture lionizes the concept of peaceful protest above all. Yes, I recognize that. And I also do recognize, for the record, I do recognize that there's this understanding. There's this understanding in the American masses of permanent pacifist resolution. Only nonviolence is what gets the job done. It's a falsehood. It's a falsehood that has been carefully reinforced through our social conditioning. Yes, this is true. So I don't disagree with you. I do think that most dissonant positions come from that failed understanding and not from a cynical perspective where someone knows yeah, you got to be violent at times, but also I'm just, personally going to make sure that I'm cynically committing to peaceful resolutions only. Yes. There's also the difference between state violence versus non-state actors as well. Americans have been taught that state violence is usually permissible at all times, as opposed to any kind of resistance against state violence is not permissible. We've seen a version of this with the Iran retaliation. Americans are more comfortable with the Iranian state fighting back against us because it's a fully fleshed state than Hamas was fighting against the Israeli occupation, or Hezbollah fighting against the Israeli occupation. It's so strange, but that is embedded in our consciousness. It's a very strange system. It's a very strange reality where Abbas Arakshi can go on NBC and speak convincingly about why the IRGC is fighting back against the American state, and yet no such permission exists for a Hezbollah commander. There's no Hassan Nasrallah goes on Meet the Press and delivers a convincing speech as to why Hezbollah must rise up in arms against the Israeli occupation. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. That's a crazy thing that exists, that has happened already. Okay?
Operating under a nation-state flag that is backed by the United States, and you're saying that there is no condition under which a Palestinian has a right to kill.
It's not crazy. Americans don't support those. They see us casting the first stone. Yeah, they're wrong about that. But it doesn't even matter. I'm telling you. Because if that was the case, they would be fully in support of fucking the Houthis, for example. They would be fully in support of Hezbollah. They would be fully in support of even Hamas. But they're not. And there's a reason for that. Part of it is because they falsely think that the Palestinian resistance cast the first stone. But the other reason is because Americans, by and large, do not recognize non-state actors, even if their concerns are valid. Okay?
Soldiers who are posted at military bases enforcing, by murder and forced starvation and deprivation, an illegal occupation of Gaza. That's what doesn't make sense to me. I don't see how you reconcile those two positions.
Because I think that the armed resistance is only going to be ineffective given the power differentials. It's similar to what Gandhi thought in terms of how he took on the British Empire, and that having a moral force of civil resistance and appealing to the world's conscience is going to be much better chance of getting dignity and peace.
2019, the Palestinians organized the Great March of Return, which was a mass nonviolent mobilization at the gates of the concentration camp walls and fence in Gaza. And you know what Israeli soldiers did, Representative Khanna? They had a competition to who could shoot the most kneecaps of Palestinians.
Well, I think that
the IDF also took ownership over that, and then they deleted it too.
Those were backed by Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas. So there's a track record and there's a context. You're talking about tactical issues. The Palestinians have tried that. The Palestinians did.
I think I think opinion is
down.
I think opinion is shifting now in America, where those kind of approaches would get a better reception in the United States.
Those kinds of approaches would have gotten a better reception in the United States back then. It's just that there was no coverage over it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Okay. Then this is an unironic defense of Yahya Sinwar's, mentality. Why do those kinds of, why would the peaceful resistance now get a better reception in the United States? Because more Americans are aware of the conflict. More Americans are aware of the severity of the crisis. More Americans are aware of Israel's actions. Why are they aware of it? Well, because October 7 happened, and then Israel's unbelievably violent and disproportionate retaliation against the people that they are a belligerent occupier of made people aware of it. That was unironically the Yahya Sinwar position. So, in any case, this inconsistency, I'm glad it's being talked about.
Because
I hope that this doesn't like discourage others from leaning in to a deeper understanding of this conflict, and then becoming more courageous in their moral conviction in the process.
Shireen Abu Akleh.
I mean, this is also like Joy-Ann Reid, for example. Joy-Ann Reid straight up is to the left of Ro Khanna now, which is awesome to see. I love Joy. She has been phenomenal on this issue. I mean, she literally lost her job because of her bravery on this. Okay. Of course, she's now an independent media figure, and therefore she has more liberties, more time to learn about the issue deeply, which she clearly has, and more liberties to discuss this at length. But once again, this is not a defense of Ro Khanna, but there is definitely more room to grow here. And I hope that Ro Khanna's position does evolve on this issue. Yes, my coworker, Joy-Ann Reid.
I believe she was killed during President Biden's administration. And this is where people feel a bit challenged, because the pro-Israel lobby operates in both parties, and they have a lot of control because they're providing a lot of money to be.
I'm gonna be honest. I love listening to her talk about this stuff. It's awesome.
Blunt, for people to get reelected. And so when when a Mexican national, Mr. Salgado Araujo, was killed in Texas, the president of Mexico immediately responded and threatened to take the United States to the International Criminal Court over it, and to say that we're going to bring international law to bear to protect this person, this father of five. I don't recall President Biden ever saying anything of the sort about Shireen Abu Akleh. I don't recall even Democratic presidents saying what you just said to Israel, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Can you understand why that would be?
They were basically fine with Israel having total impunity. I mean, it's not just Biden presided over a genocide in Gaza, giving aid. He never demanded the justice for the Palestinian American journalist. And just today, a former colleague of mine, Kathy Manning, is out with a video saying, "I'm glad Khanna and the other Americans are safe, but I have to say that this was a PR stunt because I didn't go to Israel and I just went to Palestine." So my own party, Democrats, are not willing to say the obvious, which is that you can't detain American citizens and threaten them for violence. And if people don't understand the West Bank fully, and it's hard to, I didn't understand it till I was there, think about ICE in this country operating with impunity against people.
As much as I find Ro's answers insufficient, I still think it's good he's doing these interviews. Yes, that's my position as well. And I think he's movable. I'm always going to be endlessly charitable to a fault, and people get mad at me for that. But I also take a very pragmatic approach here, a very pragmatic stance here, where it's like, I'm not saying he's going to be the movement leader. He has to, if he wants to be a movement leader in this regard, then he has to do a lot more learning, and also be a lot more convincing, and also demonstrate moral courage. Okay. There are plenty of people that we have on our side on this issue that are already there. Okay. I don't want to go through the gamut one more time. You know my fucking candidates. Okay. Our candidates that we have worked to get elected. They were already there. They have the knowledge. They have the moral courage. They have the moral conviction. They've already been there. Now, it's important for us to try to move people that were there already. Okay? Exactly. Why is Jeremy acting like a pissy bitch to row? Dude, take a week off. I will never allow you to disparage Jeremy Scahill on this broadcast. Okay? Are you insane? Are you out of your dang mind? That is crazy. He wasn't acting like a pissy bitch. He was being a good journalist. Okay? I will never allow that. Never disrespect Jeremy Scahill in my presence. Those are fighting words. And also, he was objectively doing a good thing here.
Who are brown and undocumented and think 100 times worse. And that's what you have basically in the West Bank. The IDF just with total impunity going after folks. And when they were with me and I was with 2 Jewish Americans and another Israeli, and I was the brown person, they would interrogate me. One person had the temerity to ask me whether I was a son of Ishmael or a son of Isaac. And when I said I was a Hindu, he couldn't understand what that was. It just a total a racial system of profiling and reminding me of the Jim Crow South. Of course, I didn't experience that. What I read about, where the police would be on the side of the segregationists attacking black freedom fighters, and the police was basically aligned with the segregationists. Here you have the IDF aligned with the extremist settlers. And it needs to be called out. This is what is infuriating about some of the conversation, because it always says, well, let's have a dialogue and talks between Israel and Palestine towards peace. There first needs to be a stopping of the injustice that Israel is inflicting. That doesn't require dialogue for Israel to stop enabling extremist settlers that are killing Palestinians. That requires American leadership and an American directive, and it would change tomorrow, and these people know it.
My dad is taking advantage of the 80-degree and sunny weather and going in the pool. Sometimes I don't notice Hassan left, and I think he teleported. Yeah, he did. I did. All right, let's get back to situation monitoring now, folks. A lot of situation to be monitored still. America and Iran are trading blows. What is this? I was watching the Hassan derangement syndrome vid, but I was thinking Hassan just seems like a swell guy. Thank you. We got to get the embodied chair back. I know, we're trying to fix it. You have a pool, rich boy? Yes. I have a pool that I've been inside of, I think, once or twice since I purchased this home. I'm trans Euro. Should I be scared about oil shortages? I can walk. I'm trans Euro. Should I be scared about oil shortages? I can walk everywhere now. What? Trans Euro? What does that even mean? Like you're European and also transgender? Like what? Were you assigned American at birth, but now you're European? You've transitioned into being European? Like what does that mean? You don't like swimming? No, I love swimming. Not in the ocean.
A jump in oil prices in 6 years. Why? Well, new explosions reported in Iran as the U.S. and Tehran trade strikes for a third straight night. At 4 p.m. Eastern today, the United States says it will resume its naval blockade of ships going to and from Iranian ports. President Trump says the U.S. will become the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. He also announced plans to...
Yes, we're going to talk about Haley Stevens paying influencers $1,500 to say positive things about her. I hope the open mind on Palestine leads to the open mind of reparations. Yes, that too.
Implement a toll, charging 20% of the value of cargo on ships as a reimbursement to the United States. That is in direct contradiction to things that his vice president, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Treasury have all said. Let's get to CNN's Betsy Klein at the White House for the latest on what you're seeing this morning, Betsy.
Well, the White House clearly watching those gas prices very, very closely with no signs of de-escalation for this conflict. The U.S. launching a third consecutive night of strikes across Iran, Iran responding in kind with attacks across Gulf states. But the Strait of Hormuz, that critical oil thoroughfare, continues to be the main point of contention here. Prior to this conflict, no one had full authority over this waterway. Iran now using it as a key point of leverage as President Trump announces that he will reimpose that blockade on all ships traversing to and from Iranian ports. He also says that there will be a 20% fee for all commercial vessels going through the strait that he says is for the U.S. provided security in that very dangerous area. Now, officials have previously said that it's really unclear if this can work. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has flat out questioned whether this comports with international law. President Trump himself had previously said that it's an international waterway and he didn't want tolls. But as we think about a path forward to this conflict, I just want to draw your attention to recent comments from President Trump about this memorandum of understanding. That is that now defunct peace agreement signed just about a month ago. When he signed that agreement, the president touted it. He said that it was an agreement that achieves everything he set out to accomplish. He pointed to Iran never having a nuclear weapon, the Strait of Hormuz being open, as well as ending this conflict. But listen to what he said about that memorandum of understanding just yesterday.
It didn't look. Memorandum of understanding when you're dealing with sleazebags don't mean much. And they don't mean much when you're dealing with honorable people, too, because it's a memorandum of understanding. It doesn't mean much. And I said, why are we even, it's a standard tactic in the U.S. that you go to a memorandum of understanding. And
I love what he says. A memorandum of understanding doesn't mean much when you're dealing with sleazebags. He's not wrong. It's just not the Iranian side that's a fucking sleazebag. It's you, dumbass. Yeah, it's an admission. It's just an admission. That's what this is.
Then you go to the deal. I said, just go to the deal first. But you know what? It was sort of a test, and they weren't there.
Those comments raising major questions about the strategy going forward, and all of this
is also kind of funny because he from what I understand, that was like a late night post when he was like, we're going to charge 20% to be the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then everyone was like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said, Mr. President. And now he has to like back away from it. But fear not. He will probably arrive at that position again tomorrow when he feels annoyed. It's awesome, though. We are led by a fucking moron. Okay? We are led by a fucking moron. A baboon with a child's brain. We are losing the war. We are losing the battle. As I've said from before, at this point, this is not about like coming to a peaceable conclusion, a managed resolution. This is just about stopping the bleeding. Okay? It's just about stopping the bleeding. Wait, what the fuck? Hold on. Okay, there it is. Sorry. America has lost this battle. America has lost this war. Okay? They did. And they've lost it since pretty much April. Okay? They lost it when they started it. They lost it when Iran turned around and said, okay, Strait of Hormuz is ours now. Sorry, bye-bye. And since then, we've just been bleeding. And at this point, it's just about stopping that hemorrhaging, stopping that bleeding. And the faster we arrive at a managed conclusion, a managed resolution, a memorandum of understanding, a permanent cessation of hostilities, the faster we can move on with our lives, the faster we can try to solve the compounding crises that are coming out of this chaotic environment, this quagmire that we got ourselves into. So it's very stupid. It feels like we're seeing something real. We're all in this community, in the Piker Broadcasting Service. We have been paying close attention to the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, monitoring the situation, and we understand what's going on, but the average American does not. Here is Hezam al-Assad. Says to the taxpayers in America, if the Bab el-Mandab is closed, as Hormuz was closed, and oil exports from Yanbu stop as they stopped from Ras Tanura, then how much, one wonders, will the price of an oil barrel reach? Your criminal administration uses the Saudi regime as a glove for its filth and cheap tool to ignite wars and crises in the region. But who will pay the price in the end? And first and foremost is the American citizen. You will swallow the consequences of your administration's aggressive policies just as others swallow them today. Now, of course, this is wrong. Americans don't actually understand or even receive the negative backlash of the American state's actions for the most part. That's why they're oblivious. That's why they don't know who the fuck the Ayatollah is. That's why they can't point to Iran on a map. They don't know anything. Our proximity to the conflict historically has allowed us to be oblivious to the violent desires and the violent actions that we have committed all around the world. All we know about is burger. And the only thing we can understand is gas prices going up. And for most Americans, they're still going to be oblivious to who made the gas prices go up. But some, hopefully, will come to the recognition that it was our actions that made the gas price go up and therefore the burger price go up. Okay? That's the issue. The average American is utterly clueless about what's going on. They just kind of respond to stimuli. They go, oh my God, gas prices went up $1. What the fuck's going on? That's the average American. George W. Bush era political discourse sounds like Cicero compared to this shit. Exclusive. Nick Shirley reveals what a congressman told him at the White House's UFC Freedom 250 event. He said, because of all the fraud that you've exposed, essentially the war in Iran has been free because of you. Care to explain yourself, traitor? Yes. What, do you guys forget? Yes. Gillibrand 2020, baby. I fundraised. I gave a singular dollar to the Kirsten Gillibrand campaign as a meme in the year 2020, our holy Lord. Not employed. It's true. I'm a Democrat sheepdog, baby. You already know. Do you think the same distance with Iran argument will not work the same way when we go in and try to take Cuba? I just don't even want to think about that right now. But no, I think Americans are distant by proximity, but they're also distant in general. They're spiritually distant from the actions because there is a wall between foreign policy and domestic policy. Gaza has changed that a little bit, and that's a good thing because there's never been a real separation between foreign policy and domestic policy, right? There's not a real distinction because all of our productive output goes to our foreign policy and the military industrial complex. And that takes away from the expenditures on the domestic level. That shifts our attention away from things that we could be focusing on at the domestic level. It's still the same money, right? Having said that, it's only until recently have we started discussing the connection between foreign policy and domestic. Abdul al-Sayed does a really good job of saying that. He says, look, like no money for war, money in your pockets, Medicare for all. That's the easy to understand message that most Americans can get on board with, especially when there is an inflationary crisis that they've experienced and they continue to experience, and it's seemingly going to get worse. Okay, time to carry the flame. Oh shit, level 1 hype train. Yes, if we get to level 10 hype train, we will carry the flame as always. Yeah, especially for us as business-minded folks that really care about business and international shipping lanes. as you can check the suit. Peep the suit. Peep the suit. What does this tell you? I like business. What kind of business? International commerce, specifically transiting ships through the Malacca Strait and then parking them in the beautiful ports of the nation state of Singapore. Okay, I love Singapore. Singapore is my life for Singapore. I love doing commerce. I love doing business in the great nation of Singapore. Now, of course, as a community full of like-minded international shipping magnates who love the nation state of Singapore, we have our concerns because unfortunately the nation state of Singapore has shown us that perhaps they don't necessarily care about making sure that they follow through on the application of the law, specifically cyberstalking statutes, specifically defamation statutes. This has made it, unfortunately, far too difficult for me to continue conducting business with the beautiful nation state of Singapore. But that's why we talk about the Strait of Hormuz quite a bit, because while my heart is in the Malacca Strait, my mind and my attention is shifted elsewhere, because every time I think about the Malacca Strait, every time I think about how easy it is to transit ships through that strait, I then am reminded that there is a man that currently lives in Singapore. His name is More Pegasus, also known as More Pegaslop, also known as M. Pegasus, who has been consistently cyberstalking and also defaming and slandering me, and maybe stopping me from even thinking about the Malacca Strait. It's making me think that there is a blockade that Singapore has implemented on the Malacca Strait. That's what it feels like to me, which would be unacceptable. Singapore would never. The name alone gives me chills. It's true. What is this?
He's made more than fucking 5,000 videos if you put all his streams together. You should be arrested for cyberstalking, pal. That was a joke because he says it about me. Don't worry, I'm not regarded. So Hassan is back claiming he never talked.
Sign me over your Singapore lawsuit rights. Please. 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 I want to clean out More Pegasus bank accounts. Sign it over to me. I'll do it.
He did a video about me.
Sign over your rights to me. I'll pay for all the lawsuits, and I'll collect all the winnings.
Randomly starts saying he's a billionaire, trillionaire investor, and he's keeping his valuable import-export business from Singapore because of me. And his entire chat spams this one meme for an hour straight. He keeps saying that I need to be caned and brutally beaten up because that's the only way he'd bring.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Sir, it's true. It is true. Bro, these dumbasses really be taking you seriously? They should, because I am as serious as a heart attack. It's not a joke. You know what's not a joke? Feeling concerned about continuing to do business with the beautiful nation state of Singapore, which I admire and love, as you guys all know. We all love and admire. As those who love international shipping routes, as a community dedicated entirely to ensuring that all straits are open, that commerce can flow freely. Suitbert, rise up. Importers, exporters, rise up. I do not want to halt all trade with the beautiful nation state of Singapore, but I feel like I have no other option.
His business there. You mean your business of supporting a bunch of terrorists? So then
Slender! Once again! Slender! Where are the Singaporean authorities? Do you hear that? An accurate understanding of international law should not be reflected upon like this. This is slander, I tell you. That's 10 extra canings, sir.
He starts saying that I need to be caned, right? And they call me like more caning in his chat instead of more Pegasus. And basically he wants me brutally beaten up for making YouTube videos on him. Totally sane audience, by the way. Totally normal people we're actually dealing with here. And he'll all hide behind, well, I'm actually joking, as he's actively like, you know, pulling up laws, pulling up execution.
Do you feel a little bit concerned, my good sir? Is that what's going on? Is that what's going on? Do you feel a sense of worry? Perhaps you're a little too thin-skinned. Is he calling Singapore insane in a joke? That sounds very anti-Singaporean. Yeah, I'm beginning to notice a trend here. The level of disrespect that more Pegaslop is showing to the beautiful nation state of Singapore and its laws and the application of its laws is quite concerning. It's a secondary concern. Now, the primary concern I have, of course, is the fact that I want to do trade in the beautiful nation state of Singapore. I love its ports. I love shipping. I love international commerce. You all know this. I'm wearing a suit. It's obvious, right? The problem is I can't because I'm worried that they're not fully applying the law. Okay? It's a significant business concern of ours, not just mine, but the 27,258 of you in here that are also international shipping magnates. Now I'm doubly concerned. Because, here you go. Here's a shake. My life for Singapore. I dream of Singapore. I dream of living there. I live to do commerce. I live to do trade with the nation state of Singapore, and a full-blown application of the law is necessary here for us to feel more confident in continuing our trade relations with the nation state of Singapore.
Pulling up fucking social media accounts, legitimately getting his fucking fans to spam like at these Twitter accounts or whatever.
Known for its ports.
Dude, no joke. This guy unironically does this for the entire stream. He thought this was the funniest joke of all time. He was.
It seems like we do find it quite funny. It seems like you don't. What happened? Guys, I thought
legalize comedy.
I thought comedy was legal now.
Legalize comedy.
It's like, you know, damn, my stream is so dog shit and so boring and I'm so unentertaining. My viewers are constantly leaving. I need to talk about Pegasus. I need to up those numbers, you know? Let me talk about
Yeah. That's right.
at the ports. Let me talk about Singapore. He's like flailing around, like flopping like a fish out of water. And he's like, oh shit, I need to take somebody else down with me.
I will admit, I think between myself and more Pegaslop, there's only one person. There's only one person who's flopping around right now, and it's the guy who's like, I don't like these jokes. Please stop telling them. Yeah. This could be you. Stop playing with your meal. Bloomberg News retracted a story about the Singapore property market originally published on December 12, 2024 to comply with a court order after a Singapore judge found that the article was defamatory of two senior government ministers. Bloomberg contested the accusation in court. Wow, this just happened. Wait a minute. This is giving me a little bit more confidence. This is an interesting development that's taking place in the beautiful nation state of Singapore, which I love and admire and would like to continue doing trade in. This just took place July 14th, 2026. It seems to me like Singapore is a nation of laws, is a law-abiding nation, is a nation of laws and order. Singapore law firms are extremely expensive and their law system don't play around. Pegasus would be cooked really fast and lose badly and get at least 2 years in prison. That was, of course, a cigarette, which I will be throwing out in a bin. I would never discard of trash in the beautiful nation state of Singapore by throwing it to the ground. I would never do that because I respect the laws. I respect the rules and laws in the beautiful nation state of Singapore. However, it seems others do not. I would never chew gum. Never do that. But it seems like this defamation has gone on for far too long.
desperately trying to claw at anybody, any of his haters, I suppose, which is like everybody. And I guess I'm just like a prominent one, I guess.
We do Singaporean arbitrations all the time. Let's get him. If you hire me to run your Singaporean litigation, I'll give 500 subs. That's crazy. You're going to give me money to hire your law firm to sue more Pegaslop in the beautiful nation state of Singapore?
I'm too entertaining, so he thinks he needs to take me down. And you gotta love his like deranged chat, dude. Get him caned. We're just joking, guys. We're just joking. Get him caned. Get him executed. Of course, perhaps even more canings. That's my new name now, apparently. And the funniest part about all of this, on the 0.0001% chance that this deranged psycho is even allowed into Singapore, you would be the one more likely to be caned in this scenario, I'd say.
What? Singapore! The beautiful nation state of Singapore. Do you see this? He is issuing a direct threat saying that I would not be welcome. That my money is no good. Look at the suit. I am an international shipping magnate. I move assets to the tune of billions of dollars daily, if not weekly. Now this man is not only slandering my good reputation, but also the good reputation of the nation state of Singapore. He is no longer just defaming me. He is defaming the nation state of Singapore. That, to me, is unacceptable. I was about to book a 20K trip to Singapore and infuse cash into the local economy, but now I'm traveling to Japan instead. Many such cases. Many such cases.
So I don't think people get executed for making YouTube videos. That's more likely for drugs, you fucking moron.
He must be on drugs if he is saying such things. I don't even understand it. My home state of Louisiana just announced the first ever 5 gig meta data center. Please help me bring awareness to it. Oh, you're cooked. I'm going to Brian kill me. What is this? It sure seems like many people on the far left throw the term establishment around when they'd rather be using the N-word instead. Jasmine for us. Clap, clap, clap. I do really appreciate that he's very mad that we're cracking jokes. He hates that we're cracking jokes. He does not like it, which of course is going to only make me want to do it more. So thank you, more Pegaslop. I hope if I'm ever frantically treading water on video like this, a loved one will do me the favor of telling me to turn off the computer and go outside. I was hoping to enjoy a visit to Singapore, as I hear their tourism industry is amazing. However, individuals like More Pegasus makes me uncomfortable. How am I to know if I would want to invest further in the land when I can't even visit in fear of this unstable person? I agree. An unstable slanderer of epic proportions. An unstoppable force of slander. It also calls into question the integrity of the Singaporean system, right? Like, I think it's one of the best systems in the world. I love it. I want it. I want to live in it. I want to, trade assets with it. But when I see the law not being abided by, the law not being applied, it calls into question the integrity of the whole system from my perspective. And I don't want to believe that Singapore would ever let a crime like this. Not only did Bloomberg lose, they had to pay 170. Okay, I'm licking my lips now. Bloomberg loses landmark libel case in Singapore. A judge ruled in favor of 2 Singaporean ministers in a closely watched defamation trial seen as a significant test of the country's libel laws and their implications for press freedom. Not only did Bloomberg lose, they had to pay $177,000 to each minister they defamed. Few topics in Singapore are as fraught as the soaring price of the city-state's coveted multi-million-dollar bungalows and the identities of those buying and selling them. In December 2024, Bloomberg News published an article reporting that Singapore's ultra-rich were acquiring these trophy properties through opaque trusts without filing the disclosures that would have made the purchases public. The article identified 2 government ministers, one who had sold his bungalow and another one who had bought one in transactions each worth tens of millions of US dollars. Within days, the government invoked Singapore's so-called fake news law, ordering Bloomberg to place a correction notice atop the article declaring that it contained falsehoods and directing readers to the government's official fact-checking website. The 2 ministers then sued Bloomberg and its reporter, Lo Day-Wai, for defamation. On Tuesday, a judge ruled that Bloomberg and Mr. Low defamed the 2 ministers, Tan Si Leng, the Minister of Manpower, and Shanmugam, the coordinating minister for national security and the ministers for home affairs, and ordered the news agency and the journalists to jointly pay 230,000 Singaporean dollars, $177,000 to each minister. During the trial, which began in April, neither minister disputed the accuracy of their reporting on their property transactions, but their lawyer argued that the use of words like shrouded, secrecy, and cloaking to describe Singapore's luxury real estate market hinted at impropriety. On the stand, Mr. Shanmugam said the article suggested that he was involved in a shady deal with the possibilities of money laundering. The legal standard in Singapore differs sharply from that in the United States, where public officials face a high bar to prevail in defamation cases. In Singapore, by contrast, courts have held that cabinet ministers are entitled to the same protections as private citizens. Government leaders argue that defending their reputation through libel suits is necessary because public confidence in a corruption-free government underpins Singapore's success. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting development. The case was closely watched by many because Bloomberg was the first foreign news organization in nearly 4 decades to go to trial to contest the defamation lawsuit brought by Singaporean officials. Several legal experts have described it as the most significant libel case in recent memory. We are very disappointed by this ruling, but we will, of course, respect it. Bloomberg's editor-in-chief said in a Bloomberg article, "We argued at trial that our reporting was accurate and served an important public interest." I disagree with Bloomberg. How dare you slander the good reputation of the nation state of Singapore, its courts, its process, and its libel laws. How dare you? Hot off the presses? Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna publish this with the article. When the beautiful state of Singapore finally holds to account more Pegaslop for its 400 plus videos slandering me, an international business person who wants to do business in Singapore. This guy used to make regular drama videos. What happened? I watched Pegaslop all the time before I found your channel. Back when he was someone saying it's honestly a miracle I was able to escape that far right pipeline. Yeah, he decided to pivot his content in its entirety to just making videos about me and then also people that have ever appeared on my show for some weird reason. But we're just having fun. He used to farm Mr. Beast before you. Ask yourself, would you feel good in my situation? See, he's still doing it. Why do you keep talking? The More Legendary series is officially over. More Pegasus living rent-free and his tiny head is diabolical. How can I be okay? The Legendary series is over. Look at the suit. What does the suit tell you? It tells me that you're still self-conscious about what Shuan had said. They live in a totally separate universe, too. Like, it's very strange. This universe that they live in is like an alternative universe where I'm doing things because of the videos that they've made or whatever. It's like terminally online and totally removed from the real world, which also makes me feel unsafe. It makes me feel unsafe. It feels like defamation. It is defamation. As a suit wearer, it's very clear that I like business. Bro, you didn't even know he existed? I know. But now I do. And now that I know he exists, I now realize where all of this slander and the targeted harassment was coming from, because for the longest time, his fan base has also come into my chat to cause great emotional injury to me. That's right. Tremendous emotional injury. Anyway, we're moving on from more Pegaslop. That's a funny little aside that we had here. Typo in the tweet. Wait, what? When the beautiful state of Singapore finally holds to account more Pegaslop for its 400 plus video slandering me, an international business magnate who wants to do business in Singapore. Emotional injury specifically relating to the beautiful nation state of Singapore. Yes. Oh, I said it. Yeah. Okay. That's for his 400 plus video slandering me. Thank you. knowingly and willingly and intentionally, with malice, with tremendous malice, engaging in the act of defamation, slander, libel, rendering me incapable of doing business in the beautiful state of Singapore, which I love and admire, specifically its court system and its application to the criminal justice, the rules and laws, that it applies evenly and in a fair manner to make sure that there is permanent stability. I'm an environmental scientist, and I've already arranged travel plans to Singapore and helped build their shipping industry into the world standard environmentally efficient titan it deserves to be, but I'm honestly scared to travel there due to the risk of cyber stalking. Another one. Look at that. Look at that. It's so devastating. It's so devastating to think of all the missed opportunities for commerce, folks. It's important that we continue raising awareness of more Pegaslops crimes.
Congresswoman, would you support an arms embargo? I know that you support stopping sending offensive and defensive military aid to Israel. Would you support an embargo?
What do you... I mean, I consider both of those things to be the same.
Stopping the sale of arms to Israel, or stopping other countries from selling to them.
I don't... Well, other countries, I don't know where we have jurisdiction over, but I think in terms of us, I do not support any transfer of weapon.
Goated. Beast mode. Shouts out to Julian for the record. Shouts out to Julian. Thank you. There it is.
Sale or aid.
You know, I think, well, here's one thing that I will say, like the actual ways that these things work is that they have to go. So anything that I have a vote for, here's what I'll say.
Okay.
Anything I have a vote for, I would not authorize that transfer. And I haven't, you know, I never have. I've never voted, to my knowledge, I don't believe I've ever voted for SFOPs. I've never voted for the military, NDAA budget. So in terms of my vote and what I have control over, I always vote no on weapons transfers.
Would you consider taking a trip like the one that Congressman Khanna took to the West Bank?
Oh, of course. You know, I think many years ago, Netanyahu prevented Congresswoman Tlaib and Omar from entering. And so I had stated years ago.
I think things are moving. Things are moving. It's not bad. Yeah, it is funny. Matt Petty also called this out. It's something that I also brought up when talking to Ro Khanna, and I'm glad he wrote about this. He says, it's actually very weird the Democrats are treating banking sanctions on Israel as a less extreme measure than an arms embargo, and Rahm Emanuel's the only one honest about the implications. Rahm Emanuel literally went to Tel Aviv University and was like, what do you think banking sanctions are going to look like if we implement them? Which you deserve, by the way. Every bank has a fucking a branch in the West Bank. Every Israeli bank would be sanctioned. Targeted sanctions would destroy the Israeli economy. Yes, and I'm fully in favor of targeted sanctions on the Israeli financial system. It's fucking beast mode, but it's also, you know, in some instances, it's bare minimum. It's beast mode for Congress, but it's bare minimum for humanity. Two prominent Democrats visited the Holy Land over the past few days. Rahm Emanuel, chief of staff to the former President Barack Obama and the son of an Israeli independence fighter, gave a speech at Tel Aviv University about how the U.S. can stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel on the long journey towards peace. Meanwhile, Representative Ro Khanna was visiting a Palestinian village in the West Bank when his car was held up by an Israeli settler militia. The Israeli army says it dispersed the militia, let Khanna through. Khanna says the army was lying and that the soldiers took the settlers' side. Both Emanuel and Khanna embraced the idea of U.S. sanctions on Israeli settlements into Palestinian territories. Khanna told socialist talk show host Sam Piker that a categorical arms embargo on Israel would probably be too far, and presented sanctions on companies and officials dealing with the settlements as a more moderate option. But Emanuel made it clear to the Jerusalem Post that sanctions on settlements were intended to be an all-out attack on the Israeli economy. You want to pursue a greater Israel, he said, referring to a term for the Israeli maximalist vision. You pay full price for it. Everything. That's a choice you make. Sanctions are one of the most powerful but misunderstood tools of U.S. power. In their rush to realign the U.S.-Israeli relationship, Democrats and some Republicans risk getting ahead of their skis. The ambiguity over the word embargo, for example. An arms embargo means that the U.S. government would decline to provide the Israeli government with any weapons. A trade embargo, on the other hand, would involve the U.S. government using its enforcement powers to target private civilian businesses in Israel as a form of indirect pressure on the government. These sanctions have a spotty track record in other countries, and even in theory, they only work by causing huge collateral damage. In Israel, it would be a trade nuke, okay? Because Israel does not exist without the United States of America. I cannot stress this enough. Without Western support, there is no Israel. It's bye-bye Israel, okay? That is the level of leverage and power that we have over this supposedly quote-unquote sovereign nation. But the fact that the fact that the tail is now wagging the fucking dog is unbelievable to me. They have grown too big for their fucking britches. It's time to knock them down a million pegs. Okay? That's it. This is why it has always been one fucking phone call. I know it's like symbolic that I make that reference, but it's the reality as well. Okay? That's it. That's it. Israel does not exist without unconditional and full-blown American economic support and military support. It does not fucking exist. So the very fact that Israel gets to exist in the belligerent and violent ways that it does, while maintaining an apartheid, while maintaining an occupation, while furthering its ambitions for a greater Israel project, it's totally upon us to put an end to it. Anyone that tries to tell you that's not the case, they'll go to Russia, they'll go to China, they'll go here, they'll go there. Bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. First of all, you think China is going to be like, okay, we'll take over the role. There is 0% chance that they would do that. The only reason why they're not doing anything or saying anything is because of American support. Once American support goes away, Israel becomes a real country, a normal country, one that has to abide by international rules and international standards. Okay? It's that simple. The main Israeli-Palestinian lightning rod in U.S. politics used to be aid. Israel was the largest foreign recipient of American taxpayer money since World War II. $380 billion plus, by the way, in the 80 years of its existence, of its violent existence. The debate is more or less over, as the Israeli government itself is asking to end direct U.S. subsidies. The pro-Palestinian movement has moved towards demanding a full arms embargo, stopping the U.S. government from sending weapons, whether they are paid for by the American or Israeli taxpayers. Indeed, polling shows that most Americans oppose sending weapons in general to Israel. A new policy pro-Palestinian lobby group founded by two officials who resigned from the Biden administration argues that the U.S. should use arms sales as leverage to change Israeli policy. The Institute for Middle East Understanding Policy Project, another pro-Palestinian lobby group, claims that any weapon sales to Israel would violate U.S. arms control law, which forbids arming militaries involved in large-scale torture or wars of aggression, which Israel is involved in. These critics are right that the U.S. government has a lot of leverage in this regard. The international arms trade is not really a free market. U.S. weapon sales are either done by the Pentagon itself or are carried out under direct control of the State Department. They often come with long-term U.S. commitments. Saudi Arabia, the largest customer for American weapons, gets U.S. training and support, including American maintenance technicians on the ground with its purchases. To replace direct U.S. aid, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing to fully integrate the U.S. and Israeli supply chains, and a bill to that effect is about to pass Congress despite attempts by Kana and Representative Thomas Massie to stop it. Some Democratic proponents of the continued U.S. arms sales to Israel, such as slow, boring editor Matt Iglesias, yuck, argue that cutting those sales would hurt American manufacturing jobs. That's not an entirely honest argument. There is, in fact, an excess of demand for American weapons around the world. In many ways, Israel has been allowed to push ahead of the line. The U.S. government guarantees that the Israeli military can receive preferential access to American ammunition. The war reserves stockpile allies Israel. Okay? The U.S. is dispensing munitions to Ukraine and Israel faster than they can be replaced. Okay. Anyway, the Pentagon, where was I? Is your dad naked? Yes. Okay, Kaya is escaping. Where were we? They often come through long-term U.S. commitments, full integration. Boring editor Matt Iglesias argue cutting those sales would hurt American manufacturing jobs is not an entirely honest argument. And better weapons than its neighbors, the qualitative military edge mandate, while other countries are stuck in a backlog. If Israel doesn't buy those weapons, someone else will. There's more to the argument that U.S. leverage is overrated. Comparing Saudi Arabia to other case former Pentagon officials Elizabeth Dent and Grant Rumley wrote in 2024 that cutting off arms sales has proven to be a fickle tool of coercion. Although Israel could not wage its foreign wars without various types of U.S. support, the Israeli-Palestinian issue is a much older and low-tech form of ethnic conflict. The people who stopped Khan's car, after all, were a ragtag militia. Still, perhaps an argument for getting the U.S. out of the mix, if only to wash American hands. Not true. Okay? Not true at all. It's the first and necessary step in this process. It's not the end all be all of the bargain. Obviously, embargo is the first righteous, just method of holding Israel accountable in the interim. Sanctions, on the other hand, are far more comprehensive and far more brutal. We need to get there too. The very fact that we're having this conversation, by the way, I need to take a step back here. Take a deep breath, and remind you that the very fact that we are having this current conversation is a sign that things have changed dramatically. Okay? A lot of people will choose to obfuscate the real issue at hand. And the very fact that they are choosing to obfuscate the issue at hand implies that there is so much clarity, at least amongst the masses, on this issue. People understand right from wrong. They want to punish Israel. They want to hold Israel accountable. Okay? That's huge. These are conversations that I never thought we'd be having in the United States of America 10 years ago. Are you fucking kidding me? 3 years ago, these conversations would not be having. We would not be having these conversations. Economic sanctions are a different creature altogether. Some sanctions involve seizing the assets of specific foreign officials. Other sanctions are comprehensive bureaucratic attacks on a country's economy. Over the past few decades, the U.S. Treasury has developed increasingly sophisticated ways to impede other nations' ability to trade. There's active, extensive effort to stop oil from flowing into Russia, natural gas from flowing into North Korea, dollars from passing through Iran, or tourists from visiting Cuba. For all the efficiency of the sanctions enforcement, the theory behind comprehensive sanctions is quite crude. Throw a country into economic chaos and its government will be forced to give in to your demands, or better yet, it will be overthrown. In other words, the plan is to use ordinary people's suffering as leverage. It's dubious whether that suffering even works. Instead of achieving U.S. goals without war, sanctions campaigns have often been the prelude to war. The Trump administration escalated sanctions on Venezuela to a blockade and then a direct regime change operation. Then it did the same in Iran, much less successfully. Okay? Emmanuel and Khan's proposal for settlement sanctions is supposed to be a smarter, more precise form of economic pressure. The two Democrats have named a specific target set, officials, construction companies, and banks, and a specific behavior dealing with the settlers in the West Bank that the targets can cease in order to escape punishment. In theory, the plan is well tailored to its goals, especially since the settlement movement relies much on American money. The issue with the settlements is a property dispute at heart, but the campaign could easily escalate into sanctions on the entire Israeli financial sector because of how many banks deal with settlement real estate. Emmanuel at least admitted that risk existed, perhaps a way to rattle his right-wing interviewer. Khan, on the other hand, portrayed economic sanctions as a less extreme measure than an arms embargo. He either did not fully understand the implications of his proposal or wasn't completely honest about them, neither of which is a good sign for how it would be implemented. Democratic critics are right that the U.S. involvement, especially military aid and arms dealing, has enabled violence and tyranny across the Middle East, even if ending that meddling isn't sufficient to solve all the region's problems. Is a necessary step towards lowering the temperature. And yes, the reason why we're reading this is because AOC is now in favor of a full-blown arms embargo to Israel, complete restriction of arms to the nation state of Israel.
That as long as they were opposing entry to them, but I certainly would be open to visiting and would be happy to. You know, I've never taken an APAC funded trip, and I don't take.
Seems fun though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, but you know, I've never taken like those kinds of.
Fuck. Dude, what the fuck was that? All right, we're back. That was fucking weird, man. That was weird. Am Israel high, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to repeat that one more time. Israel is the best nation. It's the tiny nation. It's the only nation that matters. I got hit with a fucking EMP, basically. Not sure exactly what took place there, but it just like completely knocked me out. But yeah. Big Yahoo, you're my king. Big Yahoo, you're the best. Itamar Ben-Gvir, you're hot. What have you been doing? Sanctions on the state of Israel. No one could ever suggest such an anti-Semitic thing. I certainly would never do that here at the Hasanabi broadcast. My position is very clear. I love Larry. I love David Ellison. I love the nation state of Israel. I love all of its loyal soldiers and servants. I myself wish to be a servant of the state of Israel. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's continue.
Beyond, of course, what happened to Congressman Khanna is unacceptable. And also, we need answers on the murders of many U.S. citizens at the hands of settlers and the Israeli government. We still do not have accountability on U.S. journalists and other people. And so I think absolutely, we needed to have been instituting these sanctions in a much harsher way for a very long time now.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Apparently Joe Kent is against the merger of the militaries. Yeah, no shit. Who the fuck would be in favor of it, dude? I mean, I know who's in favor of it, the entirety of Congress for the most part, but like most American citizens are oblivious to this happening. There's not a lot of coverage from mainstream outlets that this is even happening at all. And there's a good reason for it, because if more people were aware of what was happening, they would find it to be as perverse as we do. Why would any American be like, oh, this country that has fallen out of favor, this country that's done a genocide with our tax dollars that requires unlimited amounts of support, that country should merge its military with ours? Dude, listen to me. If fucking Ukraine made this demand, Americans would be up in arms. Okay? If Estonia made this demand, Americans would be up in arms. This is a ridiculous demand. This week, the Senate will vote to merge our military's most sensitive and secretive capabilities with Israel. This merger is buried within the massive NDAA, and they're hoping you won't notice, says Joe Kent, former CIA. Merging our military with a foreign country is a treasonous betrayal of our sovereignty. Call your senators and tell them to vote no on the NDAA until the merger with Israel, Section 219, is taken out. Tell them that we will never support merging our military with a foreign nation. The Senate switchboard number is 202-224-3121. Here's Benjamin Netanyahu openly talking about how wonderful it is on Fox News. Benjamin Netanyahu went on Fox News to talk about how great it is. Senate Dems under the leadership of Senator Chris Van Hollen unite to block the NDAA from moving forward because of its provisions that deepen U.S.-Israeli military and intel relations. This is remarkable and further evidence that the U.S. is moving away from Israel.
Mr. Prime Minister, do you have a timeline by which you would like to see that U.S. foreign aid down to zero?
Yes, it's military aid, actually. Yeah, we were talking about beginning it this year and going for 10 years, but we might shorten it. And that was something, by the way, that I did when I was first elected and came to Congress. We had financial, not military support, but financial aid to Israel. And I said on my first speech before the joint session of Congress that we're going to bring it down to zero. And we did that in 10 years. Every year went down until it finally disappeared. We could talk about that model.
It's nice to see the American president speaking to us from Israel, about Israel too. It's always nice to see the real American president show his concern for the foreign nation of Israel. It's clear that he cares about our allies. This Israel country must be a profoundly important ally if the American president, the real American president, is talking about it like this.
Talking about that with the administration right now.
Well, Prime Minister, will that drawing down of foreign aid from the United States to Israel be compensated by the proposal to have a merging of some sort between our Pentagon and your military?
Yeah, I'm calling it from aid to partnership. So we take away the money that is given to Israel, which is one part. But the other part is we co-invest in equal measures in the new technologies that are needed to give our military and your military the advantage. So there are some unbelievable projects. So we invest jointly and take the fruits equally. You move from aid to partnership, and I think that represents what Israel is. And remember, the other thing is that we share with America unbelievable intelligence to save American life. General Keegan has said that when he was working in American intelligence, what Israel was giving the United States was worth, he said, 5 CIAs. Now, I don't, I'm not trying to be mathematically exact, but Israel's contributions to America's defense are important. Our technology is incredible. And since you're...
Yeah, the Israeli intelligence is so good that it notoriously led the Trump administration to take military action in Iran that has gutted and eviscerated American force projection capabilities and greatly accelerated the timeline of the demise of American empire. So congratulations to the beautiful nation state of Israel, the tiny nation the size of New Jersey, for that one. That's how phenomenal Israeli intelligence is, by the way. It's bullshit, okay? The idea that Israeli intelligence is phenomenal is bullshit, and it's propped up by a lot of mainstream media propaganda as well. I mean, one of the best examples of this was when 60 Minutes did that, like, Mossad beeper bombing operation as though it wasn't a fucking act of terrorism. They were like, look at how comprehensive and phenomenal it is. Or an even better, more recent example was when they were talking about how the Israeli intelligence was so phenomenal that they knew exactly where the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was. Yeah, dude, he was at his house. Okay? He was at his house tending to his fucking garden. The fuck do you mean that was brilliant intelligence from the Israeli side? Wow. It's like, here's some brilliant secretive intelligence from the minds of the Hasanabi espionage facilities. The president is currently at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's right. The United States president is currently at the White House. Wow. Such phenomenal intelligence. How could I have penetrated the American State Department this hard? I'm doxing the president.
Is incredible too. And you're the great champion of liberty and free markets. I think the meshing of our two great countries of talent would strengthen the America's position, competitive position, both in the economic marketplace and in the military battlefield in many important ways. So that's the idea. The idea is to take away aid, one-sided aid, and move it into bilateral investments for common benefit.
It certainly brings up some issues of sovereignty, but we'll have to work that out later. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. We appreciate you joining us.
Exclusive. Our investigation into Israel's secret operation to cultivate Ahmadinejad to turn him into an asset. His trips to Budapest were a front to meet Israelis, including Mossad chief David Barnea. This was the New York Times reporting. Why would U.S. intel, presumably Israeli intelligence, share this recent operation with New York Times, burning a prize asset and scaring away IRI recruits? Maybe they want to burn Ahmadinejad because he burned them, double agent, ? Or planted this to sow paranoia and he's collateral damage. Odd is totally ridiculous. You would never burn such a high-level asset. Wait, what the fuck? Is it effing again? What is happening? I am not seeing it. I am good on, it's good on my end. What the fuck? It's fine for me. It's all good on my end. I don't know where you guys are getting this from. It was just a mini stutter. That's it. I was choppy for a few seconds and you guys made it seem like the stream got knocked out the grid. Anyway, AOC had another good moment cooking Susan Collins on her support for ICE, obviously. But we'll get to that in a second. Speaking of the bills that are passing through the House with the NDAA, well, I guess before we get to the bills passing through the House with the NDAA, let's continue with the memorandum of misunderstanding.
As President Trump has formally notified Congress that the U.S. military has resumed action against Iran, he says that action will be limited.
We want to start charging people to go through international waterways. When you hear things like that, I mean, is this just that I don't know, is it just incompetence? Is it just that Trump and his team are just really not on the same page, or that Trump wants to change the status quo of how the world works?
Well, I think more than anything else, it's Trump making things up as he goes along, which is very much on point with him, which is very much part of the brand. He was asked a question, he needed to come up with an answer, and that's the one he came up with, which is pretty consistent. Look, here's what it takes. Quite aside from 20% is far more than even the Iranians are charging. Those are very, very large tankers. When you say 20% of the value of their cargo, depending on what they're carrying, let's say it's oil, let's say it's at current prices, we're talking about $70, $80 million. Iran wants to charge $2 million. Right. So if you're a shipping company, who would you rather pay? But anyway, that's aside.
The art of the deal.
Let's set this aside.
Sounds like
what
tariffs.
does it take?
Exactly.
What does it take for the United States to get into a position where it can say we are the guardians of this strait? What it takes is to have military control of both sides of those waters, which means putting boots on the ground in Iran, controlling the Iranian territory overlooking the Straits of Hormuz, which means putting, by the administration's own calculations, which mean putting enormous amounts of American blood and treasure into a full-fledged war. You can't, at the one side, say we're not going to have a full-fledged war, we're not going to put American boots on the ground, and also say we are going to control the state. That square into that circle simply.
And as we have learned, Emily, I mean, if controlling the strait were so easy, we would have done it by now, and we haven't.
Yeah. First of all, we will agree right now. I literally think Trump made that up on the phone call. You could tell he just was like having a silly time. I know.
Oh, that's cool. Matters that pertain to the stability of global energy markets. Just a thing that the president makes up like a baby. What the hell is going on? Yeah, we know that. That's a fucking problem. We know that. We understand that. That's kind of the issue. Why is Emily Austin on CNN, by the way? What the fuck is going on? I mean, seriously, is it like, is the only qualification to appear on a fucking CNN panel to just be pro-Israel? Is that what it is? We're just letting people on just because they're pro-Israel. At least with like Adam Mockler, he has like a fairly large and robust presence on independent media. He's with Midas Touch. You know what I mean? Emily Austin has none of those things. What the fuck is Emily Austin doing on a CNN panel?
I also want to point out, this is just being like technical here. Vance and Rubio, I'm not saying they had discussed this by any means, are talking about international waterways. Now,
they were talking specifically about the Strait of Hormuz in those clips, yes.
So I laughed at this, but if I'm being completely honest, I think it's a huge threat to the entire world that Iran can just decide when or when not to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
Totally.
So personally, again, as an American, I like to be on the winning side. I wouldn't mind. Second of all, I don't know why this just reminds me of the Panama Canal.
You wouldn't mind why?
If America controlled the strait.
But
so,
ground.
So here's the thing. Obviously,
I'm sure
I think
one
he's
would
not
mind.
being serious. I don't even think he's being serious. I'm saying
So
if somehow there's a tangible way that it can be done, I think that will be a massive plus for our economy. I think most of Panama's GDP is from the Panama Canal. I mean, if we can have wait, you're telling me if we can have the Strait of Hormuz, you wouldn't take the Strait of Hormuz?
Girl, yes, but how are we going to get it?
We'll figure that out.
No, at
What is this conversation, man?
this point, in all seriousness,
I'm
is there anything about? I'm not saying that taking the strait is a bad thing. What I'm saying is, at this point, in this execution of this war, it's done. It's not done. Do you actually think that there is a plan from Donald Trump to get us out of this situation?
Right now, this minute?
Yes.
Actually, yes.
Okay.
After
I have a
hearing
bridge
him
in
speak
Brooklyn.
today,
I want to tell you because
this is.
I don't know how much
you're
the rest
too
of
smart
the world.
for that, Emily.
No.
You're too smart for that.
Everything Emily just
Okay.
said should make us appreciate Obama's deal a lot more, because without depleting
That's an oxymoron.
Well, listen, without depleting our missile stockpiles and without letting them gain control of the Strait of Hormuz, we were able to accomplish a deal. We are now 135 days into this war that was supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks.
Obama's deal would be ending right now.
100 days. There was a phase 2.
Is in trouble.
There was 100 days ago a tweet from Trump where he said unconditional surrender is what we're going to get from Iran. Since then, They still have missiles. They still fund their proxies. They still have the nuclear capacity, and the regime has not been changed. So our generation is bearing the brunt of this cost. We are bearing the brunt of this war cost, and our debt is already massive. The Obama deal did not put us into debt. Okay, what do you mean? Can I ask you, what concession have we gotten from Iran so far? Horace, what concession have we gotten from Iran so far?
Do you know who the biggest critics are of Obama's plan? It is the Middle East region. All of those partners sit.
Oh, God. Why do they have so many people who just don't know what the fuck they're talking about on this stupid-ass panel, bro? I'm sorry. It's so frustrating. Oh, really? The Middle East region is a critic of the JCPOA? Man, what the fuck are you talking about? Just say Israel, dude. Just say Israel. That's it. The only critic of the JCPOA was Israel. You know who was not a critic of it? China. You know who was not a critic of it? Russia. Iran was abiding by the standards. There's a multilateral commitment from not only allies in Europe, but also foreign adversaries like China and Russia. Okay? I think it's really annoying. Look, I understand the purpose of these sorts of panels, okay? I get the purpose of these sorts of panels, but like, just please have someone who's at least a little bit knowledgeable who can actually hold these people's feet to the fire. It would be entertaining.
Around, they criticize
the partners that now have to pay $300 billion to Iran, the
regardless
Gulf
of what
allies.
They have to pay, they asked for relief from what they called a very terrible plan. So when you go around saying,
yeah, no, definitely, man. Definitely. Horace Cooper, Project 21 chairman, thank you for your input. Thank you for your delusional input. What the fuck? Is the panel just like varying degrees of the Zionist lobby? Is that what it is? Is that what's happening here? It's just a bunch of different people from different groups that are probably getting money from the Israeli government to a certain degree, like to varying degrees of just like big donors who are Zionists. Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? That's crazy. That's crazy.
It was so great, and you outline it.
I'm not saying it was great, but they are begging for.
Why wouldn't you say it's great? If your goal is to denuclearize Iran, why wouldn't you say it's great? The only reason why I think the JCPOA wasn't great is because it didn't go far enough in terms of sanctions relief. That was the only crime there. Okay? The entire purpose of the Iran nuclear program was never to like develop nuclear arms, you know, which we can have a discussion on whether or not that was the appropriate or smart choice or not. There's a whole fatwa. There's all this other conversation that we could be having. But as far as the JCPOA goes, the only issue with the JCPOA was all of the assurances and the additional MOU that we gave to Israel in exchange for, you know, abiding by a sovereign foreign policy strategy that Israel didn't want us to do, right? But the other side of this was that the JCPOA did not go far enough as far as our sanctions relief.
I'm saying it's better than this. Horace, can you name one concession we've gotten from Iran?
Now.
Can you name one concession?
Well, actually, Horace, I will say they are not really saying a whole lot of anything right now.
Yeah, they're saying privately.
And also,
bro, she has 8 views on this video. Jesus Christ. That's it. You can get 8 views on a video and still get on a CNN panel as long as you're just a Hasbro operative. It's awesome. What are these standards, man? What the fuck are these standards?
So let's just be clear. This past week has been really terrible for those allies. Bahrain has been put under fire. U.S. military facilities in Kuwait, Iran claims that they're targeting the UAE, other Gulf states. It's pretty bad right now in the region.
There has been an uptick in fighting between...
Yes, Michael Clark. Give us the goods, my good sir. Michael Clark, ready to give you analysis and commentary.
The United States and Iran in the last couple of days. The ceasefire, you wouldn't say, isn't quite over, but it is in serious trouble. The fact is, war has a habit of mutating into something else. And while they could still do much worse to each other and to the rest of us, the fact is they're both fighting with a certain sort of restraint, because this war has...
I mean, in all fairness, that video was posted 30 minutes ago. Dog, it had 8 views in 30 minutes. What are you talking about? How many views do you think it's going to get? Okay, here it is. She interviewed the motherfucking president. 11 months ago, and it got 158 views. That was 11 months ago. Is 11 months sufficient? Is 11 months sufficient time for a video to accrue the maximum amount of viewers that it could?
Mutated for the time being into the war of the Strait of Hormuz. Forget about nuclear issues, forget about ballistic missiles, forget about regime change. For now, it's all about the Strait of Hormuz. And as part of that new war of the Straits, the Americans are bombing fairly regularly now up the Iranian coast, including around Bushehr, which is where the civilian nuclear reactor is. They're not bombing the reactor, but it worries people that they're bombing anywhere near it. President Trump said yesterday that they might go for Pickaxe Mountain. Pickaxe Mountain is just near Natanz, the nuclear site, and that's the deep under.
Another even dumber point from Trump, by the way, is bombing Pickaxe Mountain, which is even more secure than the other underground missile facilities and underground nuclear facilities. It's fucking dope.
Ground shelter, which the Iranians are believed to have. Whether they would really bomb something 24 hours after President Trump has said they will bomb it, we'll have to see. But that pattern of attacks is clearly designed to keep on pressuring Iran over opening the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, in response, the Iranians are attacking American bases in the region. They're particularly interested in the bases, the air base in Kuwait. They're particularly interested in Bahrain, in the naval base of Bahrain, the headquarters of the Fifth Fleet, the big air base in Qatar, and of course, various facilities that the Americans have in the UAE. But the Americans still have the concentration of force in the area that they've had for some time. It's based on two carrier battle groups. Sky's Data and Forensics have located with satellite imagery these two carriers. They're quite close together, but they're also about 380 miles away from the Strait of Hormuz, which is the safe distance as far as they're concerned from the Iranian coast. Go any closer and...
What do you say to the people who believe that Iran wasn't abiding by the JCPOA? They were. They were. So I don't know what to say to people who just believe in alternative shit that they made up in their minds. Yes, they're hallucinating. Believe the lie that Iran wasn't abiding by the JCPOA. Yeah, well, you already figured it out. They're believing in a fucking lie. What can you say?
Might have to start defending themselves. But the fact that the carriers are quite close together tells us that they are ready for some sort of operation. And if you think about the whole the Americans are operating for the Eastern Mediterranean, the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, and just around the corner in the Indian Ocean, they have an enormous concentration of military power that they can call on. They can call on their two main aircraft carriers. They've got two major assault ships with marine expeditionary units ready to go. They've got a couple of other command ships and landing ships, and no fewer than 19 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Those are guided missile destroyers with a powerful air defense suite of defenses.
That's not an answer. Why did I get banned? That's not an answer. Okay, take a second off.
In addition, they've got at least a couple of hunter-killer submarines in the area because they always go with the carriers. So the Americans can bring an enormous amount of power to bear if they're prepared to fight the Strait of Hormuz. If they want to move in and fight the Battle of the Straits, they will undoubtedly win it. But in winning it, they will probably take some losses. That would not be popular in the United States. And having won the Battle of the Strait of Hormuz, they'd have to stay there in some sort of form or other. Which is why when President Trump says today that the Strait of Hormuz is completely open, that's what he said. The answer is, well, Mr. President, let's see how many ships actually transit the Strait of Hormuz in the next few days or even few weeks.
Here's Hamid Reza Azizi musing on the latest escalations. During the 40-day war, Iran had a clear targeting strategy, and each set of targets served a specific purpose. In the first stage, Iran targeted U.S. radar and early warning systems at bases across the region. The aim was to enable longer-range strikes against Israel later, which they succeeded. At the same time, Iran targeted those U.S. bases that could be used for a potential ground operation against Iran, including bases in Kuwait, Al-Kharir in Iraq, as well as some bases in the UAE that could be used for operations against Iranian islands at the same time, which they did successfully, as we called out. This is why I keep saying, how can you take Karg Island? How can you establish a forward operating base in Karg Island when you have no rear guard, you have no bases in the region that are in operation currently? Okay? It wasn't just a targeted strike to destroy billions of dollars worth of U.S. assets. It was a deliberate strike to shut off U.S.'s eyes and ears that Israel takes advantage of. And they did it successfully. That's why once the Israeli munitions were depleted, you started seeing far more successful and successive strikes on Israeli soil. Paired that up with what Hezbollah was doing in its bombing campaigns on Israel, and this became a real problem. Anyway, at the same time, attacks on energy infrastructure in the region were intended to maximize economic pain. This time, however, despite the effective resumption of war, Iran continues to target U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain that have already been attacked several times. This may partly reflect efforts to strike new installations deployed by the United States at those bases. But when judged against current U.S. objectives, these attacks do not appear particularly helpful to Iran. During the previous round of war, the U.S. had a broader set of objectives, including regime change, a potential ground operation to seize the HEU stockpile, and targeting of Iran's missile capabilities. In this round, however, the U.S. is focused on weakening Iran's ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz, and it is carrying out strikes towards that objective every night. These operations rely primarily on capabilities that the United States already has in the region, as well as on the reimposition of the naval blockade, which depends on U.S. warships and naval forces. Iranian attacks, therefore, do not appear to be deterring the United States from continuing its strikes. Therefore, it appears that Iran's only strategy at this moment is to keep the strait closed for as long as possible. The United States continues drawing down its strategic oil reserves until the impact on the global oil market and the U.S. economy becomes irreversible. Iran hopes that this would push Trump to reconsider his position. Of course, this is a risky bet at a time when Iran remains under constant and heavy attack. Of course, we gain nothing out of this. And the United States, as we know already, is incapable of meaningfully diminishing Iran's capabilities of controlling the Strait of Hormuz. Because, as I've said over and over again, it's a relatively cheap and unbelievably effective strategy to just deploy these drones and these missiles on commercial ships that are transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. It's that simple. Okay? It's that fucking simple. There's new Israel-Palestine polling. 15 minutes ago, Detroit News, sample 500, U.S. Senate Michigan Democratic primary 2026, Haley Stevens at 48%, Abdul El-Sayed at 41%, undecided and other at 10%. We'll flip that. It's expected. Good results for Stevens, although it is worth noting that Glenn Gariff has been consistently strong poll for her this primary. They've had her ahead in every survey they've conducted so far. I don't know their methodology, but I would expect this poll to probably underestimate youth turnout. But, of course, as is the case, every single outlet will turn around and aggressively posture as though this poll is the new lay of the land. Stevens is winning. Abdul's done. It's over. But it was expected. As I told you, McMorrow staying in the race was actually eating away at Haley Stevens' base a little bit. Okay? Stevens had a higher ceiling, unfortunately, because she has $50 million in outside expenditure. This is, unfortunately, a very real part of the problem. Okay? Is it hope that Obama would show up for Abdul? I don't think Obama will show up for Abdul, but it doesn't have to happen that way at all. Anyway, we're going to continue with this stuff, and then we'll get to Abdul. We'll get to the Abdul mania. Haley Stevens has 0 grand game, no get out to vote effort, nothing on the ground. She's relying on old people turnout in Detroit, which is historically abysmal primary turnout. I know. Zoran Bump could help him a lot. No. What are you talking about? Get real. Zoran is the mayor of New York City. Okay, sure, he's a very popular figure, but he's not going to fucking go out to push for a U.S. Senate candidate in Michigan, okay? obviously everything helps, but like, you know, be a little bit more realistic with your expectations. He's the mayor of New York, okay? Also, what you have to remember is this weekend, there are going to be massive events for Abdul al-Sayed. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders are coming to the state. They're going to do huge events starting tomorrow, I believe, all across the state. This is going to greatly boost turnout and also greatly boost his excitement, okay? It's going to show up in the polls as well. So just wait. Get your ass on a plane to Michigan. Dog, I'm going to Michigan. Just not this weekend with the AOC Bernie wave. I will be going to Michigan right before the actual election, okay? I'm going to be a part of the final push. As far as what you can do right now, if you're wondering, if you're worried, if you're concerned about Abdul's chances, because he has received an unfathomable amount of attack ads and smears to the tune of $50 million from outside expenditures from corporate PACs, many of which is coming from AIPAC, then the best thing you can do is phone bank for him. Okay? The Stevens El-Sayed contest tightens in a dead heat when considering primary voters who say they're definitely committed to voting for one candidate or the other, with 34.1% identifying as definitive Stevens supporters, with 33.7% as definitive or definite El-Sayed supporters. Bernie put the boss call to keep you in LA. What? What boss call? Brother, I have a life. Okay? Yes, Abdul El-Sayed is the Black Democratic primary voters, which are, again, depending on the demographics here, I suspect that if they are underestimating youth turnout, then yes, these numbers look like that. But if you actually look at Abdul al-Sayed's youth turnout, if you look at the black vote in the primaries with the expectation that youth turnout will also increase, then these numbers look far closer to one another. Okay? It's all about how much they estimate youth turnout. If they underestimate youth turnout, then yes, Haley Stevens looks really good. I assume that given that Glenn Gariff has consistently polled Haley Stevens as higher than Abdul al-Sayed, they're probably underestimating youth turnout by a lot. Many polls have done so in this election cycle so far. That's the reason why Dottie Eliza was seen as a definite loss, challenging an incumbent. Haley Stevens always looks good. Okay. True. Yeah. Mayla Quiros was underestimated. Dottie Eliza was underestimated. Even Claire Valdez, to a certain degree, was tremendously underestimated. You have to remember that. No, this is not done pre-AOC endorsement. This is 7/8 to 7/11. It's recent. It's actually post debate. So it's the newest poll that we have on this race. We're gonna continue. Is there a Hassan Act Blue link for Abdul? Yes. Yes. Poll where Michigan Democratic voters stand with U.S. Senate candidates Stevens and El-Sayed. Detroit News poll finds Senate primary race between Haley Stevens and Abdul El-Sayed is close. Michigan Democratic voters were asked in a recent poll if how they felt about the 2026 U.S. Senate primary election in the state. A poll conducted by Detroit News asked Democratic voters from across the state about their opinions on various topics. Name recognition-wise, Abdul El-Sayed is at 88.5%. Haley Stevens is at 90%. His favorabilities are 51% favorable, 15% unfavorable, 21 no opinion. Never heard of is at 10%. Don't know refuses 0.6. Never heard of for Haley Stevens is at 8. No opinion is at 20%. Unfavorable is at 21%. Okay. Definitely Abdul El-Sayed voters are at 33%. And overall, Abdul El-Sayed is at 41% and Haley Stevens is at 48%. Okay. This is entirely propped up by outside expenditures. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you. Haley Stevens is a non-entity. Okay? Haley Stevens is not a real figure. in the state. She has no real ground game. She has no ground game whatsoever. I believe there's only 3 virtual events that they've put out in the state after they got called out for having 0 get out the vote operations and having 0 ground game. Haley Stevens is entirely backed by AIPAC and other corporate PAC expenditures. She is just she is the perfect demonstration of what is wrong with American politics. Okay? There's no other way to put it. She is the perfect depiction of everything that is wrong with American politics nowadays. A person that is not touring the state, a person that's not going around and actually doing events with the voters, a person that's not conducting any town halls, nor is she doing any media. She's done very little media. Because why should she do any media when the media is bought for? That's it. She's mass blasting mailers and she's mass blasting television ads. That's it. You get to do that when you have $50 million. Abdul's grassroots fundraising on the other side has reached $4.5 million. It's actually an incredible amount. Okay? Abdul is actually doing a phenomenal job fundraising through independent small donors. The problem is it's fucking virtually impossible to combat with $4.5 million, $50 million. Abdul is getting outspent 10-1 in certain markets. 10-1. 8-1 in others. He's currently number 1 in Act Blue, and he's in a primary. James Tallarico is already the established candidate. Annie Andrews is already the established candidate. John Ossoff is already the established candidate. Sherrod Brown is the established candidate. Abdul Al-Sayed is in a Democratic primary right now. And despite the fact that he's in a Democratic primary currently, he is the top fundraiser this week. But it's not enough. Who's on air in the Michigan Senate Democratic primary from @Impact Politics? UDP, AIPAC subsidiary, spends $4.6 million for Haley Stevens. Abdul Al-Sayed has his own personal campaign, spend $489,000. A Stronger Michigan is another pro-Stevens PAC that is spending $299,000. And Fighting for Michigan is a pro-Al-Sayed group that has spent $65,000. UDP is not just pro-Stevens. United Democracy Project is an AIPAC subsidiary. Okay? Speaking of mailers that they're distributing, I've finally gotten, I finally got that coveted Hasanabi mailer. Here it is. AIPAC is mailing this to Dem primary voters in Michigan. Abdul Al-Sayed embraced a podcaster who said Jews are inbred and that America deserved 9/11. Whatever his feelings about the Middle East, someone running for the U.S. Senate for Michigan should be able to unequivocally condemn a conspiracy theorist who denigrates women, Jews, and black Americans. Instead, Abdul Al-Sayed brought him to Michigan to campaign with young people on campus. What is the lie in this piece, says Neera Tandon. I said, I never said Jews are inbred, but you might have fried decent chunks of your brain with a devastating wine-pharmaceutical combo, so I won't hold you to it. Didn't you say Orthodox Jews are inbred? Because that's in your TNR interview. Is it okay to say any groups of Jews are inbred? Feels like a sign of weakness in your argument that you're doing is ad hominem attacks. You build the lie, you keep repeating it What? No, it's not. I checked. Yeah. You build a lie, and then you keep playing a game of telephone around this lie. And at a certain point, it just establishes a fucking truth. So now Neera Tandon can turn around and say that. No, I didn't even say Orthodox Jews are inbred. I was talking about fucking settlers. Okay? And it was a pejorative that I used towards all matter of racial supremacists, ethno-supremacists. It doesn't fucking matter. When a lie is repeated enough times, it becomes the truth. And that's where we're at right now. What is this? Their fucking exclusive senior advisor to Melania Trump, Mark Beckman. I believe that our first lady, our current first lady, Melania Trump, is the single most consequential first lady. With the first. Jesus Christ. In any case, it doesn't end there. All of these people that I've shown you on the timeline, there's a good reason for why I've been just like constantly criticizing them, constantly railing against them. Because Neera Tandon is at Center for American Progress. Okay. And she is at the heart of the anti-Abdul attacks. She's propping up Haley Stevens. She is at the heart of this war that's waging within the Democratic Party, where Center for American Progress, which should be called Center for American Poo-Poo, okay, the P should not be for progress, let's be real. Center for American Pieces of Shit is one of the vanguards against the outsider insurgency candidates that are coming out, okay? Not your best, whatever, shut up. Center for American Poopy. That was really hard of you. I know. I'm going beast mode on Center for American Pieces of Shit. I'm requesting a refund. No refunds. You're a grown man, dog. I am a grown man and an international shipping magnate. Are you at risk of you yelling at me? You got to close some of them tabs, Hasanabi. I know I will. I'm going to clear them after this. Anyway, the candidates will get results for Michigan Senate. The candidate will be a fighter that stands up. Donald Trump is at 38%. Haley Stevens will not do that. The candidate that represents my values at 19%. The candidate that can win in November and beat Mike Rogers at 25%. So those two are the top priorities. Abdul can do both. Haley, I call into question if she can at all. Anyway, so AIPAC mailer comes out. I said, I retweeted, I said, they did this with Zoran, Daria Eliza, Chris Rabb, and with Maylon Kiros. Anyone who criticizes Israel will be branded a terrorist by the apartheid nation that murdered 20,000 children and is currently working to merge our military with theirs. This is how they buy their seats. They also did this with Abdul al-Sayed, Peter Stern says. She isn't doing it now. Why was she changing the Senate? Exactly. Exactly. A great question. The question should be asked, do you feel like anything positive has come out of the current establishment Democrats? Less Obama connections that haven't materialized in the last decade or so, and more so a connection to Chuck Schumer is a necessity here, because Chuck Schumer is the one who's pushing Haley Stevens. Let that not be forgotten. It's Israel that is pushing Haley Stevens. This person is proving that polls biased. Detroit News endorsed Stevens, and Glenn Garrett polling has been way more favorable to her than other pollsters this year. Well, you can't say that it doesn't spook you. It motivates me. We knew your corrupt, genocidal corporate overlords would try to buy this election. Abdul's the top grassroots fundraiser in the country right now and is being outspent 8 times by AIPAC. Progressives don't have the money, but we have the people and we can outwork you. Exactly. Remember, they have the money, but we have something far more important than that. We have people. Okay, they can mass blast smear campaigns all over the TV. Okay, they can try to freak out the older voters to try to get them to go out and vote. Okay, negative campaigning often depresses voter turnout. This is something to remember. So all of those negative ads that they're spending against Abdul, we can combat that. We can use that to our advantage. Okay, there is nothing more powerful than making a phone call and having a real person-to-person conversation with a likely voter. Okay, we can use the ads for name recognition and then fight back against those smears and turn that name recognition into something that is objectively powerful and positive for Abdul al-Sayed. But the only way we can do that is if we are disciplined, if we're organized, and if we continue doing these phone banks. Okay. The only way that we can fight back against $50 million of ads, 40 million of which coming from AIPAC and AIPAC subsidiaries, is if we go out and door knock. Okay? That's it. Abdul al-Sayed has reported over $4.5 million raised in the second quarter, the biggest quarterly haul of the campaign since its launch. This is good. This will allow Abdul's team to be able to put ads out that combat the misinformation. This will allow Abdul to be able to pay canvassers, okay? Pay for the system that allows people to go out and canvass. It's very important. Do not forget, organized people beats organized money. They got the money, but we got the people. Haley Stevens has nothing. No real motion, no real excitement surrounding her campaign, no real policies whatsoever. The only thing that I've ever heard her consistently talk about is, saying that she loves Michigan. That's true. She does say that a lot. And also, she loves the nation state of Israel and wants to defend it. Okay? In a since deleted site for a prior campaign, Haley Stevens said the U.S. relationship with Israel must go unquestioned. Hard to overstate what a radical stance this is. To her, it's illegitimate for voters to even question U.S. support for Israel. She is an extremist. Go run for office in Tel Aviv if you really love Israel that much. Get the fuck out of the Michigan Senate race. Ridiculous. Chatter has some success phone banking. Yeah, well, phone banking, I found that the average Michigander doesn't know how bought Haley Stevens really is. I use the fact that she's 100% corporations in a trench coat, and they see she'll always prioritize her donors. Then I lean into Abdul's strength. Almost always works. If you're going to choose to accept money from any corporate PAC that'll throw it your way, we'll use that to our advantage. Thanks. Abdul's strengths. Since the libs are being purposely dense about character counts, surprise, their actual policies: abolish ICE, Medicare for all, money out of politics, no super PAC money, especially APAC, end the genocide, expand the courts, free education. More on his website. What is this? I'm not phone banking for an avowed supporter of capitalism. Okay, man, well then don't. Okay, suck my dick. What do you want me to say? You see $50 million coming from every corporate PAC known to man, flood the marketplace with smear campaigns against this guy, and you don't think that that's a threat to corporations? You think they're just fucking doing that for no reason? You think they're just doing that for fun? I'm glad that you maintain your morality, chatter. I'm glad that you actually are principled. The principled stance here is to say, well, sorry, this guy who has an identical platform to Bernie Sanders doesn't say he's a democratic socialist, so he's not getting my support. Sometimes it's good to not only look at the policies, which are plenty with Abdul's campaign, and see if you identify with them, see if you appreciate them. Because remember, this is a Senate seat. Okay, this has national implications. This is implications at the federal level. It's the upper, it's it's the Senate. It's the upper chamber. It's far more consequential than the House of Representatives in a deep blue district. This is a statewide race. We have to pull out all the fucking stops. I won't phone bank until I see Abdul tax returns. Okay, calm down. But aside from the campaign, aside from the background, aside from the policies that Abdul is representing here, you have to sometimes look at who the enemies are. You have to look at who the enemies are. Who are the enemies of Abdul El-Sayed? Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, pharmaceutical corporations, big businesses like the monopoly utility structure that exists in Michigan, DTE, okay, APAC, and numerous other APAC shell corporations. These are the people that are dumping boatloads of money into the race to make sure that he doesn't fucking win, okay? Health insurance companies. Why are they doing that, you think? You think they're doing that just for funsies? Like they love wasting money? You think rich people just love dumping boatloads of money? Hopefully, we will make sure that it's a waste, for the record. We will make sure it's a waste by fighting back, by phone banking, by making sure that we draw tremendous turnout from young voters and even older voters as well. I thought you guys cared about making sure that we had anti-genocide voices elected into the upper chamber nonetheless, where he would be even more alone. Abdul El-Sayed is anti-genocide. If you care about that, you got to drop this whole bullshit. Like, oh, he's not calling himself a socialist. All right, fine. In any case, El-Sayed will report over $4.5 million raised in the second quarter, biggest quarterly haul of the campaign since its launch. Is the only candidate in the race not accepting corporate donations. Grassroots donors have flocked to Abdul's campaign, repeatedly placing him in the top 5 for weekly campaign donations on Act Blue. A spokesperson said in a statement, the playbook. El-Sayed's sum came in prior to State Senator Mallory McMorrow's exit from the race. The campaign had its best single day number following the second debate last week, notching $150,000 in donations. Haley Stevens does not need any singular donors, individual donors. Abdul won't release his tax docs because he doesn't want the world to know how much dark money he's gotten from the world shipping power of Hasanabi from Singapore. Okay, dude. Yes, it's true. Anyway, who are your sympathies with more? New poll that came out from YouGov. 27% say Israelis, 25% say Palestinians, equals say 24%. With Democrats, they say 36% with the Palestinians, equals at 31%, Israelis at 10%. With Republicans, 58% say with Israelis, 18% say equal, and 6% with Palestinians. Equal is a dumb choice. Should the U.S. provide military aid to Israel? When you ask all people, the number is at 44%. Among Democrats, the number no is at 54%. Among independents, the number no is at 57%. And with Republicans, the no votes is at 25%. Obviously, Republicans are omega cuck. They're a part of a cult. And they're, just violent people in general. So it shouldn't come as that much of a surprise that this is the case. Having said that, no aid to military, aid to Israel, no military aid to Israel is at 44% overall, with yeses at 33%. Also, new poll shows that 65% of Americans want the Iran war to end ASAP. Only 15% support continuing the war. Every audience measured is in favor of ending the war. This includes MAGA at 51% and Trump voters at 49% that want the war to end immediately. Has Abdul said anything that would make that chatter think he's a capitalist, or are they purely being bad faith? Yes, he has literally said he's not a socialist, that he is a capitalist. He said that to me too. He said that to me sitting in my room, in my home, sitting right here a year and a half or 2 years ago, almost, or a year and a half ago at this point. Those are his own words. He said that on this broadcast too. I think it's cringe. I disagree with him on that, but I'm not going to let that disagreement be an impediment to electing someone who is by far one of the most quote unquote radical, the most left senators that we will ever have. Hassan, why do you talk like that? Why am I talking differently? I don't think so. There's the other side of this Abdul al-Sayed story. And that is, of course, and we're going to get into it further. A lot of these tweets from Emily's List and other pro-Israel voices on here came out before the AIPAC ad was announced. Did they get a heads up? As I noted 2 weeks ago, the attacks from Shannon Watts and Emily's List staff seemed timed up just before the first AIPAC ad launched. The new ad actually quotes Shannon Watts and Emily's List as fodder. Here's a conversation between known Zionist Shannon Watts and AIPAC-funded Emily's List Jessica Mackler. Both of them are quoted in this ad painting Abdul as sexist. Yes, they were absolutely organizing. I mean, it's very clear. And Neera Tanden, too. They were organizing ahead of time in direct collaboration with either the Haley Stevens campaign or maybe AIPAC, which, by the way, Haley Stevens' campaign and AIPAC, they're one and the same.
I know you all have endorsed Haley Stevens in Michigan.
Yeah.
And I'm getting so much grief over that. Again, I think it's a great example of a show horse versus a workhorse.
Yeah.
It's not easy to stand up as a woman for other women.
I think there's something unbelievably sinister about making it seem as though, you're doing this for quote unquote feminism. There is something so nasty about being in favor of a candidate that is almost entirely propped up by pro-Israel dollars. To claim that you're doing that because of not just your own personal career ambitions, but because you're doing that for feminism is disgusting. Okay? Nasty business.
Men, especially online, like the blowback is swift and furious. And that's obviously sexism. Like, how do we...
It's not sexism to say, Shannon Watts, that you made a career out of trying to combat school shootings from taking place in the United States of America. And now you've decided to take your career to a new level where you are actually allowing more school shootings and school bombings to happen elsewhere. Okay? I've said this from the start. I stand by it. It is one of the nastiest things I've seen this person do. Okay? What a nasty individual she is. Garnered so much goodwill by being an anti-school shooting advocate, an advocate against gun violence, only to turn around and demand more gun violence and bombings to take place in places like Iran, Lebanon, Gaza. That's what it means when you're pro-Israel. That's what it means when you join forces with AIPAC. How is this any different than joining forces with the fucking NRA?
How do we do this online? Push back on these narratives that aren't true about who we are and what we.
Yes, this attack on Abdul was coordinated. Steven sent out this memo here a few days earlier. Yeah, this is her red box, basically. Okay, this is their memo. This is how they coordinate. This is a loophole to coordinate with PACs. This is how it's done. Technically, until the recent Supreme Court decision that also made it legal to coordinate with PACs and campaigns. You had to do a red box. You had to do a messaging blast, technically, to interested parties. There are real vulnerabilities for Abdul al-Sayed in the Michigan Senate primary, and only once Democratic voters learn more about his record, they move away from supporting him in the primary election. This is bullshit. He's vulnerable for having backed the uncommitted movement that helped Donald Trump win Michigan, and the Democrats also do not like that he has a history of disparaging women, in particular women they know and like. Al-Sayed was a prominent backer of the uncommitted movement. This is what they've been doing. Okay? This is what they've been doing over and over again. Abdul al-Sayed, remember, literally endorsed Kamala Harris before Haley Stevens did. Okay? Can you stop using the word nasty to describe a woman? Is this 2016 in a Trump-Hillary debate? Wait, what? Dude, what am I allowed to say? What am I allowed to say about a fucking pro-Israel consultant? What words? Can you tell me what the appropriate confines are? Can we do that? Meanwhile, these guys are literally being like, see, Abdul's Muslim, dirty Muslim, who may or may not have voted for Kamala Harris. We don't know. You know how those Muslims are. Really? You don't see me fucking complaining about that shit. What do you want me to do? I know this is how it is. If you disagree with a powerful woman in politics, that means you're a sexist, right? That's what it means. What is this? Name what you find it is that she's doing that's nasty. I already did. Being a fucking pro-Israel stooge. It's the nastiest version of politics, while also tying that up to femininity and feminism. What the fuck? God, I hate this shit. Now they're going to say even your fans call you out for being sexist towards Stevens like Abdullah is. I know. And guess what? They're right to do so because some of you are fucking brain dead. Okay? Some of you are unbelievably brain dead. It's true. Ridiculous. El-Sayed has a history of insulting women. He called Michelle Obama's ideas uninspired and ineffectual. Like, what are we doing? What is this weaponization of the most hollowed out version of white feminism? You kind of curated the chat though. Oh my God, I'm going to fucking lose it right now, dude. This is my least favorite version of chat culling that I every now and then have to do when a dumb fuck comes in here in the process of me disciplining my chat to do a little bit of community rearrangement. And they go, well, you did this. Well, don't worry. I'm curating it right now. You got the ass whooping first. Does anyone else want it? It's time in DSA convention video. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
We should advocate for and in real life. Like, how do we make this shift when women only hold 25% of the 500,000 elected positions in this country?
Like every time we can demonstrate that a woman can win in a place that someone told us that we couldn't, we are carrying that forward.
Like Emily's List is a great example of this, where they shamelessly utilize womanhood and femininity and feminism, like girl boss feminism, to oftentimes prop up some of the biggest male monsters out there, sometimes against female challengers. Okay? Just remember that. Shannon Watts owes her career to the patron, Michael Bloomberg, who harassed women, paid out settlements, then barred them under NDA so they can't even discuss it. And Haley Stevens endorsed them for president of the United States. They are cynics. They don't believe in what they say. Always remember that. Yeah, does Shannon Watts support DSA women, Dadia Liza, Claire Valdez? Does Shannon Watts support Maylok Quiros? Does Shannon Watts support any of the candidates that we propped up, that we fought for? No, because this is an ideological battle. These people, it's not even an ideological battle. It's just about money, okay? Are they defending Cori Bush against Wesley Bell? No, they're not. Do you want to know why? Because they're cynical charlatans. They're disgusting operatives of a dying system where all they care about is where their next paycheck is coming from. And they know that the establishment Democrats are who is going to give them money. It's that simple. And they clearly don't shy away from taking money from horrible groups like AIPAC or horrible people like Michael Bloomberg. We know this shit was always going to be difficult. We have to exercise messaging discipline in this process. Okay?
But I also think, it's why, even though anytime you say even just a simple positive thing in some of these races, you could end up being eviscerated online for it, that we keep showing up and doing it, right? And we need to keep showing up and doing it because that is so critically important to our ability to push past this. Otherwise, we're just handing it over to them, right? We're kind of like, here's the cesspool of the manosphere and you can take it. We have to be willing to stand up and say, no, these attacks on Haley Stevens are sexist, and we're not going to let that stand, even when.
Yeah. Any criticism of a corporate stooge, an Israel stooge like Haley Stevens, is actually sexist. You know what's not sexist? Just voting for Haley Stevens and supporting Haley Stevens. That's great. Great argument. Thank you. Yeah, we're actually both quoted from tweets that say sexism has been wielded against both McMorrow and Stevens in this race. Neither of us mentioned El Sayed specifically. My tweet wasn't used in context, and I wasn't asked for permission to be included. And you'll notice that in this interview, we don't mention El Sayed at all. Where did my replies go, Shannon? I edited my posts, so they're gone, but feel free to repost, and I'll respond again. Bernie Sanders is sexist. Oh, my God. You're in the fucking AIPAC ads, Shannon. Ironically enough, there was another candidate that tried to do this in the exact same state, and she lost. Her name was Hillary Rodham Clinton. What are we doing? This kind of stuff is so unbelievably insincere. AIPAC is spending more than 8 times as much as the entire pro-Abdul El-Sayed campaign, and Haley Stevens isn't even on the air. I'm not even sure I've ever seen anything like this in a Senate race, says Dan Pfeiffer. Like a total non-entity. The only time I can remember something like this happening was with Joe Biden. In the Super Tuesday victory that came after a insane barrage of free media that Joe Biden received from the predictable South Carolina victory in the primary. The weekend from the South Carolina primary victory into Super Tuesday was so unbelievable. I believe there was tracking on this. It was like $8 billion worth of free media that he received. Every single outlet was running 24/7. Joe Biden is the Joe Biden comeback. The Joe Biden comeback. He's going to destroy Bernie Sanders finally. Or maybe it was not 8 billion. Sorry, it was 2 billion. It wasn't 8 billion. It was $2 billion. And then that coasted Joe Biden into an easy victory in Super Tuesday in states that he had never even gone to. Remember when is the lowest form of conversation? What? Oh, yeah. What about pro-AES super PACs? The actual dark money. How much is our revolution spending on him? Dan Pfeiffer says, this includes everyone on the air this week, including any dark money. Like, these people are bots, man. They hear the talking points and then they immediately lean into it. It's so strange. It's from The Sopranos. Okay, whatever. I don't care about that right now. Speaking of which, if you're frustrated by all of this, here's a funny story. Breaking: Haley from Michigan is paying influencers $1,500 per post and asking them to sign NDAs. David says stuff on IG. I received a confidential influencer brief from Haley Stevens' Senate campaign. The interesting part, it says it's covered by an NDA, but I never signed one.
It's a confidential document. It's covered by an NDA. The only problem is I never actually signed an NDA. So, shh, let's not tell anyone. Let's go through it together. It's an influencer brief from the Haley Stevens Senate campaign in Michigan. Right at the top, it says that the rate for this video is $1,500. So apparently, that's the going rate for a do-nothing candidate. Okay, so let's quickly get to the goal. So our job is to educate.
I didn't even think about that. All the women that were running, they said nothing about Kiros, Bush, Daria Liza, Valdez, or any of the women candidates that lost their primaries. What did they say? Nothing about those candidates? Or did they tweet about all the attacks Daria Liza got during her primary? No, of course not, dude. Of course not. If they ever talked about any of those women candidates, it was usually in the negative because these guys are bought and paid for. The whole like feminism shtick is nothing for them but a goddamn weapon to wield cynically. That's it.
And show Michigan Democrats that Haley Stevens is leading the way to fight against Donald Trump and MAGA. Okay, so let's see what we got. So the first instruction says, share a proof point where Stevens has stepped up to fight MAGA. So sure, so just like Trump, Haley Stevens says that we can't afford universal health care, affordable housing, student debt relief. But when Congress had a chance to put limits on how long the president could keep U.S. involvement in Israel's war, she voted against those limits. Meanwhile, American taxpayers have paid at least $29 billion, with a B, supporting Israel's war. Funny how we're always broke until it's time to fund another war.
Great fucking, by the way, great video from this guy.
So the next instruction says, make this personal. Why does stepping up to MAGA matter to me? This is fun, isn't it? Not signing an NDA and blowing it up? Love it. So it matters to me because I believe politics should be about earning people's support, not renting it for $1,500 like Haley over here. So if you're really the fighter in this race, you shouldn't need to pay influencers to convince people.
That's crazy. Okay, you have to look at this. Sorry, I have to show you this right now. It's so funny. Okay, so she propped open the door. She propped open the door and started barking at the door because I got food delivered. She's still staying in here, but she's monitoring the situation. She's making sure the situation is good and monitored. She thinks she's a fucking guard dog. It's crazy. It's crazy. This dog is out of her dang mind. Can I get chopsticks and the no, the small cup sauces that I have for like the small cup sauce that I have in the fridge, but chopsticks for sure. Situation has been sufficiently monitored by Kaya.
You should be able to beat Abdul on your record. Abdul is talking about healthcare, affordable housing, getting money out of politics, and taking on corporate power. Haley's campaign is sending out influencer briefs that require an NDA. So now on to my favorite part. You do not need to endorse Stevens. So think about that for a second. They're basically saying, we don't need you to believe in Haley. We just need your followers to think you do. They're not buying your vote. They're leasing your credibility. And that's really why I wanted to show you this document. Because if your record speaks for itself, you don't need influencer briefs. You don't need talking points to sign an NDA, a rate sheet. You need supporters. That's the difference. Vote Abdul. He is a person that will represent you, not corporate interests and not Israel.
Hell yeah. Beast mode.
Damn, this guy's good.